ever done.
How's it going, everybody? This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition. You are watching me on my fifth stream this week. No, fifth day this week, and my second stream today, because earlier I did a DC solicitation stream. I just want to thank you all for not getting tired of me or not getting tired of talking about X-Men. To my left is my wonderful co-host, but so much more than just that. My partner in crime when we're talking about the X, baby. Crushing Crisis. How are you, buddy?
I am so excited to be here. I'm so excited to talk X-Men. Happy New Year, Minties. This is the first time I've been on a screen in 2026. And I'm excited. You know, I feel like sometimes you and I have been associated with X-Men for so long. I don't know if you feel this way, Omar, but I'm like, can we not talk about X-Men? Can we talk about indie comics? Can we talk about Wonder Woman? Can we talk about horror? But like every once in a while, it just feels good to say, you know what, baby? We're going to talk about X-Men.
Oh my gosh, yeah, especially with all the announcements, you know, that aren't done yet. There's a few more announcements coming. And yeah, it's our absolute pleasure to try to simplify things yet confuse the hell out of you all too, because it's what we do best. It's X-Men and it's our favorite thing to collect. So hopefully we'll get some of the questions answered that you all have during the stream. Yeah, I mean, I think I said earlier when I was on the DC solicitations, I had a funeral to go to and I had to come back. So I came back with the intent of just jumping right on, and I stopped by to get my caffeine, and I'm ready to go. No drinking alcohol tonight, which is just weird.
Well, the plan is if it goes, if we don't hit the mark, and if you still have more questions, we'll do it again with improvements. But if it goes really well, we'll do it again after more books come out, and we'll get Omar drunk, and it'll be like drunk history.
Yeah,
we'll see if Omar can explain the omnibus is drunk, but we thought we got to kind of like semi-raw dog to begin. Because we haven't even fully said what we're here to do. We said X-Men. Omar said, can you stream in January? Let's get together. We haven't seen each other for a while. What do you want to do? And I said, I want to do something that's huger than anything we've ever done before, bigger than even trying to talk about like everything on the Tiger Eyes poll. And so we went back and forth with a couple of things. And I said, what if we try to explain every single flagship title X-Men omnibus and then every single flagship title not an omnibus? Basically, can we do my whole site and every Omar reading order, video reading order in one stream? 15 years of me. How long has Near Mint been happening now? 9 years?
10 years in May.
10 years. So yeah. 25 combined years of X-Men content. Can we do it in one stream?
We're going to try. This video is not brought to you by Marvel Comics, by the way. We do not.
So Omar's going to get spicy.
If you people want my honest opinion, they know. They know how I feel about a lot. If you've been watching my live streams or if you watch, my old reader, new reader. Can't wait for all the awesome mapping ahead. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Super Panda, for the super chat. Yeah. Crisis ready to praise Bendis X-Men for a few hours. We differ so much in opinions. My X collection is a hot mess. Masterworks, Omnis, Epics drives me nuts. But it truly is the way to collect X-Men. Like, mix and matching formats is what we do. My catching Crisis.
We started out mixing and matching formats. Sorry, I'm a little slow. Internet.
No, it's okay. It's okay. There's a little bit of a lag, so I'll try to give a little room there. I just started X Omnis. Well, God be with you. But it's so fun. It's so fun and frustrating, and I don't know, and madness, and I don't know what other way to put it. It's just, but thank you all for being here and joining us. I know a lot of people have so many questions, and we'll try to get as many answered. Samantha, it's always good to see you. I tried mapping X-Men with all of the miniseries and other series, and I got frustrated quickly. Yeah, it happens, right? Like sometimes I get frustrated when looking at my reading orders. I'm like, can I do it better? But yeah, it's a lot of fun. So we're gonna jump in. We're gonna include all the announcements that I've made so far. But since we're only talking about the main X-Men line, I mean that's all really that we need. And of course, some of the things that Marvel has stated. There's a video that's gonna come out tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. It's a breaking news updates for some of the things that I've added that you all know about, or some of the things. And I lost Peter. He got so bored of hearing me talk. I don't blame him. And some of the things that you may not have heard of yet. So just keep an eye out for that video. But you ready, Peter?
I am. I just wanted to say shout out to Sam up in Auckland. I actually got to do a ice cream crawl with Sam in December, which was so cool. And I see one of our other Auckland friends is in here, Neil Pereira, and the weather, they've been getting slammed with rain up in the north part of the North Island. So I hope everybody who's watching from up there in New Zealand is staying safe. It's just miserable and cold here, which is kind of funny because it is the middle of summer. But now on to some X-Men.
We have a snowstorm coming here to Kentucky, so you guys are complete opposite. You're having a, what did you call it? An ice cream what?
I had an ice cream crawl with Sam. She took me up and down this really cool street in Auckland. It's like kind of an Omni dog would enjoy. And we had ice cream at like 4 different places, I think, like a bar crawl, but without liquor.
So it's like a beer crawl, but with ice cream.
A beer crawl, yes.
X-Men Omni announcements are done for now, not X-Men related Omnis. So,
ooh, hint.
There you go. Hello from Australia. You're down south of Peter. And Warren is here, ready to praise Bendis's run on X-Men. So, okay, we're going to go ahead and start. How to collect X-Men in omnibus format. Near mint condition and crushing crisis crossover event. That's my favorite event of the year, really. I know we've got our polls coming up in the next few months. Actually, our months are filled up with the polls coming soon. Kicking it off, I think, on February 12th with the Epic Reprint poll. Okay, so collecting X-Men in omnibus format. Peter, well, I'll control the slides and talk about some things. And if you want to take the lead, by all means, please take the lead. You're a fast talker.
All right, well, we're just going to briefly kind of set the stage here because we really want to get into how things are mapped. When we're talking about X-Men, this is one of the most complex sort of hyperlink or hypertext dramas in the world. Hyperlink, you know, meaning it's not just one stream. It's not just one book. It's not just one title. There's manga out there that have hundreds of issues and dozens or hundreds of collections, but not with the amount of branching of X-Men. And even if we were to look at Batman, Spider-Man, Superman, they all have one main character. So when it comes time to try to like organize them together, at least we can say, well, Peter Parker is in all these books, so they're all Spider-Man books.
Right.
But with X-Men, it's different because there's so many X titles. Is the main title in any given time Uncanny X-Men? Sometimes there's an adjectiveless X-Men, sometimes New X-Men, Astonishing X-Men, and then of course all the supporting books too. Woo! So that gets really complicated. It's not like Cyclops is in every one of them, right? So like, how do you even know what X-Men to collect? And I'm a social media junkie. I'm on Reddit, I'm on Discord, I'm on Blue Sky, and when people ask questions about X-Men, it's like not only where is it collected, it's like, what is it? What am I even looking for?
Okay, the most important comment of the night, though. Crisis, your hair looks good.
Thank you very much.
There it is. Thank you, John. I will say this. If I had never found this channel, I would only own half of the X-related Omnis I currently do. My wallet hates you, but my heart is all love. Thank you. A lot of people consider Captain Britain an X book. True, or Namor.
I do.
Right?
I absolutely know he's not a mutant.
Namor, the Submariner next book, right? Where does that go into your show? Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Okay, so we are moving on to the next slide.
So let's just kind of set the terms for what we're doing today. We're talking about those main X-Men books. So this is not X Factor. This is not New Mutants. This is not, you know, the all new Dupe. This is whatever title's carrying the main thread of X-Men, the main team of X-Men at any given time. We're going to tell you how they've all been collected and what's missing from those from 1963 to 2024. If you love it and it's helpful, we'll come back and do all the supporting titles. But you're not going to find any New Mutants or X-Force or anything like that in this. This is about main X-Men titles to our best of the ability to define that. Because as I said, at certain points, there are several main titles at the same time.
Correct. But luckily for us, a lot of it has already been collected in omnibus format. There are some eras that have yet to be collected. Weirdly enough, some of them I thought would be a no-brainer by now, but here we are. So, speaking of eras, Peter.
So this is how we broke it down. We're going to go through each one. We're going to talk about if we like it, if you should start there, how it's been collected, and what the gaps are. These are just general. Nobody at Marvel named them this. This is just the way that I think about them. And so we'll encounter all of them as we go. And you'll see with some of them, like the 90s, we had to split it up, of course, into multiple chunks because there's a lot of things going on there. But let's get to the first one, Omar.
Which is the Silver Age and probably the easiest era to collect of X-Men. This is as simple as they come.
Well, wait, hold on. So do you like this era? A lot of people who are like big comic book heads are like, I got to start at the start, right? I'm like, dear God, do not start at the start.
I remember when I got to announce the reprints immediately on my Saturday live stream, I said, I'm happy for people that want to start at the beginning. I'm happy for people that wanted the reprints of the X-Men volumes 1 and 2. But oh my God, Good Journey, please don't base X-Men on this era, because there was a reason why the series was canceled and it became nothing. I mean, even Avengers survived, and that was terrible at times. X-Men got canceled. There are some good things in here, though. I mean, I can't deny the Roy Thomas and Neil Adams era, and there were some hit and misses, but this isn't when people think of X-Men, people don't necessarily think of this era of X-Men.
And I would say, first of all, my first error of the stream, that should be 66, not 63. So I'll just update that. I know, strike one. Trust me, there's plenty of chances.
1963, you get easy.
I know.
I do it all the time.
I would say to that, some people say that they hate this so much. And for me, it's like, there are good things in there. I think everybody should read the first 10 issues. I think the first 10 issues are so fun. It introduces so many characters: Magneto, Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, Blob, Eunice. They meet Namor. Like, I think that's a no-brainer. I think the Sentinels issues are amazing, 14 to 16. And then it gets a little sleepy until Neil Adams gets there. So I do advocate for people starting this, but yeah, this is just 2 omnibuses. It's done. Everything after 66 is all covers only because they were all reprint issues. And so there's nothing to collect. There's no original material. There's no kind of like different scripting. It's not like classic X-Men. They're just reprints for that whole period of years. But Omar, what are the hiatus years?
Those hiatus years, actually, I think it's in the next slide, right? Nope. You didn't know. Oh, yeah. We can just go through this. So those years are when X-Men was canceled, and then the X-Men were in other series. Some of them would join another team. Some of them would just guest star here and there. We even had our ever-loving Beast turn into the blue furry Beast, or gray furry Beast at first. Those issues have been collected in Epic format. They've been collected in the Masterworks format and in the X-Men box set. They have never been collected in omnibus format. And who knows, maybe one day we'll get an X-Men 2.5 omnibus, which would be cool. Or the X-Men 3. Technically, they could call it that, because immediately when you jump into the next era of X-Men, you're looking at Uncanny X-Men omnibus. So this is this outline. Go ahead, Peter.
No, I was going to say, I think the challenge there is that they got it into one Epic collection. And so to like translate one Epic collection into an omnibus kind of feels like, So those are all out there. It's called The Darkest Before the Dawn. It has, I think, all but maybe one of those issues. And that's really it. The X-Men are not anywhere else in that period from 1972 to 1974. So you could just get that one Epic collection. There were 2 Masterworks. The collection options are a little bit different there, but we're here to talk about omnibuses. So the question is kind of like, would Marvel ever just put that in an omnibus and have it mirror the Epic so closely? Some people during the Tiger Eyes poll last year said, you know what else you could put in there that's only one book? You could combine it with the Champions. Now, the Champions doesn't start until a few years later, but it does have Iceman and Angel throughout all of it. And it's another book that's just one book. I've got it a little out of reach, but it's just one Marvel Masterworks. So that's not an X-Men mainline title. Really, this is not an X-Men mainline title either. The whole team is not together a single time in this whole box on the right. But if you want to follow X-Men until Giant Size, that's where they are.
This is an excellent question, by the way. I love Seinfeld. It's a good choice. It was something I thought too when I first started collecting. And so the comment is, I'm new to comic omnibus and I'm shocked. I can't buy any Uncanny X-Men Omnis. Shouldn't they just always be in print? It's the dang X-Men. I thought the same thing. Why don't they keep popular titles in print? This is ridiculous. There's always new readers coming in. And that's when, you know, I was purchasing books and not talking to publishers. But since doing this and talking to publishers and getting to know how things work, nothing stays in print within the publishing world, especially hardcovers, because they're really expensive to put together. And the biggest thing is that they don't own the printers. DC and Marvel don't own printers, and the warehouse space. They only have a certain amount of warehouse space to store these books, whether it's at the printer or the distribution center. So that's the reason why there's no such thing as a true evergreen when it comes to Omnis. Even DC will go through a third or fourth printing of their popular titles. That game is going to change a lot in the upcoming years because, well, they're going to add a lot more to their catalog. So it's going to keep them from keeping reprints of like Scott Snyder's Batman, like they always have been able to, or Green Lantern by Jeff Johns. I really hope that answers your question. And it's not a dumb question. I was there too. I would ask these questions like, why not? Why won't they have their own printer? That would make the cost of these books go up too, because they print overseas, both Marvel and DC, as well as other publishers like Image.
Well, and also I think when it comes to reprints, you have to think about the difference between the formats and how they've succeeded and failed in them over the years. Masterworks used to be like no reprints ever, and then they had kind of started remastering them from the beginning. And I don't have any insider information, but I thought the sales were kind of soft because they weren't in a great hurry to keep doing them. Epics, the whole point was like, oh, we do them out of order, so we can reprint one whenever we want. And that's kind of working, but now there's so many epics that it's kind of like, how do you choose just one to reprint? Do you always pick the oldest one? Do you pick the one that sold out the distributor fastest? And then with omnibuses, it's kind of like all of us excel. I am like, well, if you could just have a set of them, like we have Uncanny X-Men 1 through 6 that we're about to talk about, just reprint one a dang year. And then every time you add one on to the end, you know, the reprint period gets longer, but it's never that simple because there's the economics of every other book they're trying to sell. If there's some other book that they could reprint and sell 5 times as much, they should give the printer spot to that one. So it's complicated stuff. And I hate that everybody's got to like hunt for these. Like if you want these 2 books, they're not cheap or easy to find right now.
Yeah, and I'm a collector as well of different things that happen to be out of print. I always tell the story about how I got into vinyl, and it's video game vinyl, and I made the mistake of getting into it because I wanted the Chrono Trigger vinyl. It just got a reprint after me waiting 6 years for the thing to get reprinted.
Yeah.
So we do reprint polls every year that we do share with the publishers, and that's what's about to happen here in the next couple of weeks. We're going to kick those off with the Epics, then the Marvel Omnis. And in the past few years, the publishers have looked at them and reprinted a lot of them. Last year and a half for Marvel, though, they did slow down on reprinting them. So, you know, I will say the reprint poll this year is probably going to look a lot different than it has in the last couple of years.
Ooh,
we've had so many new people that have gotten into the hobby, like this gentleman right here. Or lady.
Oh, you mean the results are going to be different? Like it's a whole new appetite for books.
I think it's going to be a lot different this year. Hate to say it, but I have seen X-Men Volume 2 over at Ollie's. That is something that happens too. Liquidation happens, but keep in mind, like you're in this hobby long enough. I've seen Uncanny X-Men by Claremont and Jim Lee Omnibus Volume 1 at Ollie's.
Yeah, people think things
so hot right now. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, they think it's like a moral judgment on the book. It's like, no, man, like any book that just doesn't quite sell through fast enough will get liquidated when they literally need the space on that shelf in the warehouse. So like if you saw 20 copies of some like really hot Spider-Man book in the wild, it doesn't mean that book failed. It just means they got down to 20 and it was time to shift some units. You know, I think people get way too precious about like, you know, it's interesting. I swear the sidebar will be brief and then we'll roll on because we already covered this.
We're never brief.
I had to go to the dump yesterday to drop off like electronics and old car seats to get them responsibly recycled. And they had their little like things that they'll accept to get reused at the shop. And there's this big sign on the shop that said, if we do not accept your item for reuse, please do not be offended. And I thought that was really funny. Like people are going to the dump and I saw it happen in front of me and they're like, I got this great lamp. The lamp is like a table leg duct taped to a lamp stand with like clips on the top to hold up. And they're like, why wouldn't you sell my great lamp? It's a great lamp. And it's like, yeah, people get offended about trash. And I think in the same way, people get like super offended if they hear that some X-Men Omni was at Ollie's. And it's like, not all trips to Ollie's are equal. Not all liquidations mean the book sucked. Not all liquidations mean the print run was wrong. Sometimes there were just some books in the warehouse to get liquidated. Let's talk about Claremont, baby.
Oh, heck yeah. And really quick, the polls are open everywhere. We open them throughout YouTube, and you can find out where to vote. I think we're getting 5 votes. I can't remember. We'll explain when we do them. I promise. We give everybody a chance to, of course, vote and have their voices heard. The best era.
So that's why let's linger here. So you think this is the best era of X-Men?
Oh, I didn't notice the years. I heard you say Claremont. This is my second favorite era of X-Men. Yeah, 75 to 86. Those are, I mean, in the 80s were my era of X-Men. That's when I got big into X-Men, baby, and there was no going back. So this era means a lot to me. My first issue, my first comic book is from this era, which is Uncanny 168, with that beautiful Kitty Pryde cover by Paul Smith. And this is Walter Simonson, 171. I love this issue too.
So it's interesting. This era does contain probably maybe one of my top 3 parts of X-Men, but I have seen a growing thrum of discussion lately of people who are trying to start at the beginning of Claremont on Marvel Unlimited or on Epics. They bought omnibuses and they're like, when does it get great? They're like, it's good. I like the characters. Phoenix Saga was hot. When does it get great? And I've said this for a long time and people have heard me say it on the channel. I think it doesn't really start really cooking hot until they get back from the Brood Saga, which is like towards the middle of this.
Yeah, from the Ashes era.
Yeah, original From the Ashes.
But I mean, Claremont played the long game. Back then they did, right? Like writers would start something, build up, like, and have the time to give you character development, give you, that long soap opera type of story, because let's face it, these are long soap operas that we love. They just happen to have kick-ass characters with fancy costumes and cool little gimmicky powers.
Yeah, I think that's the thing about this. If you want to really start at Giant Size and Uncanny 94, like you're basically saying you're in for a ride. You have to be willing to let these characters develop and simmer for like 60 issues. And if you're just looking to start at the beginning of issue and get the level of thrill that you get starting like Green Lantern by Jeff Johns, maybe don't start at 94. But let's look at what's in this first half of Claremont. Sure. So guess what, y'all? This is completely collected. It is covered. There's nothing left to do here. The omnibuses are done. I'm sure if Marvel went back and remapped the first omnibus, they might squeeze in a few extra guest appearances, which they did subsequently into Epic collections.
Yep, they did. Add that Iron Fist issue, baby. That's where we get Wolverine in that Fang costume, man. Come on.
Yeah. Well, the final issue of Iron Fist where he fights Sabretooth. There's some Marvel team-up issues, but we're not talking about all that. We're talking about Flagship. Can you read it front to back X-Men? So classic X-Men isn't on here either. This is done. It's collected in omnibus, whether you can find them right now. I know, I think 4 right now is the one that's really hard to find, but let's go down a slide and just look at the visual of that and how this breaks out across the years, because it's pretty straightforward. So the first omnibus covers so many years, and it's partly because it just has, 40 issues in it. But also, Omar, in that period, wasn't it at some point only coming out bi-monthly?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Because they were still testing the waters. They didn't know exactly, X-Men had been canceled for a few years. They brought it back. It's people, I mean, nobody knew who Chris Claremont was at the time. Dave Cockrum was still kind of new. I don't think he was the hot commodity that he became later on after X-Men. But man, wow, this I can't imagine what it was like collecting these issues back then. Like going back.
Well, you remember we were both trying to buy these like in the late 80s and early 90s. There was the idea that you had read every one of these issues. It was like your richest friend didn't have every one of these issues. Only the old guy at the comic book store.
I was going to say either your friends' parents or their dads usually, or the people at the comic book store would have those issues. Yeah, man, it was crazy. And oh, dude, we didn't have collected editions either.
No.
Not in the 80s.
I mean, I just remember if you were at a convention or at a store you had never been, the thrill of driving past a strip mall and seeing this comic store you'd never been in and going in and finding some random Uncanny X-Men 184 for $5. That was like your month had been made.
There we go. Us Legion fans, all 12 of you, knew who Dave Cockrum was. That's right. Nightcrawler could have been with the Legion, baby.
Almost happened, man.
So close.
And Marvel fans were not aware. So again, this is really easy to cover. There's not a lot of ins and outs. There's nothing competing. There's only one stream of title. Yes, there are miniseries in this period like Kitty Pryde and Wolverine, Nightcrawler, and the omnibuses integrate them. X-Men, Alpha Flight. So, but if you're just looking to follow the main thread of X-Men, there's nothing competing. It's a single stream of a single title, and you could get all the way from 1975 to 1986 in 5 omnibuses when they're in print, which is pretty cool. Now, there's one footnote here, which is on the right. The same material that's in Uncanny X-Men Volume 5 is in Mutant Massacre Prelude, which is kind of because there were no kind of cross-title events before Mutant Massacre, but all of us fans were like, but there's only one missing book on the shelf. It's only 8 issues of X-Factor. Do something, Marvel. It's only you can help us. And so they put out Mutant Massacre Prelude, which you kind of can either or that with Volume 5. It's completely up to you.
We focused on that the last time we did a stream like this last year when people were asking several questions about which way they should collect. And really, Marvel, it now gave you an option, right? It's like people coming in that are new to the hobby now have an option. Do you get the events or do you get the ongoing? Because Volume 6 comes out this year, which is crazy. Like,
well, we're about to get to that. Yeah, it's going to make the explanation more complex. Nick pointing out, and I agree, Nick, the miniseries are really important. Like big stuff happens in there.
Absolutely.
Just in terms of squeezing text onto the screen that you could see, we just wanted to stick with flagship named books. So like, is the Wolverine limited series from 1982 or is it 83? 82. Hugely important. Yes, it's hugely important. It sets up the whole, the Mariko plot, but it's not the flagship X-Men title. It's in these books, but we didn't put it on the side.
Which is also why we didn't name or mention the classic X-Men, even though that should be.
We love it. Yeah, the two of us love it.
The compendium. There should be the compendium. We can talk about that.
The other thing is, Coquette wants to know how you should read all the series. Omar has done videos on that. On my site, I have what I still think is probably the most comprehensive X-Men reading order online that goes from 1963 to 2012 that has every series of every mutant all in order. But it just was too much to do on screen. So that's why we're trying to do just flagship.
There's actually a quick video where I showed you when to start reading the series, because keep in mind, like Wolverine had a mini series, like we said, in 1982. His ongoing series, which is collected in that omnibus, didn't happen until a few years, actually 6 years later or so.
1988. Yeah. All right, so let's roll on to the second half of Claremont, which is where our job starts to get a little more complicated.
Now,
what do you think about?
Is my
look at his face, just how bright Omar's face got.
Oh man, you talk about, look, dude. I haven't gotten a chance to talk to you. This is crazy. When I was a kid, part of my reading, what I would do is pop in an album, a cassette usually, until I had enough money to buy a CD player and listen. So like for me, like the soundtracks were the Outback era. Like for the Outback era, I was listening to, I was big into hair metal, and then I was later on in death metal. But people like Bon Jovi and Skid Row and all those cats, man, from the 80s. Like that's my soundtrack for this era of X-Men. So anyway, to tie back to what I was saying, I'm interviewing Sebastian Bach on Wednesday. We're just talking about comic books. which is
That
crazy.
is so cool.
But I'll tell you about that later. Okay. So yeah, this is
I
my
actually want to do. I have no knowledge of classic metal. I like a lot of like glam rock from the 70s, but once metal really diverges from glam rock, I really only know Black Sabbath. So I want to do like a Crisis Reacts to metal. I've never listened to Megadeth. I've never listened to Metallica, Slayer, Judas Priest, which I know these are all different categories of metal. But I just think it would be really fun to go and listen to all of their first albums. The other thing is, so
go ahead.
For me, that soundtrack is when we get to the next era and Wolverine goes back to the yellow costume out of the brown costume.
Yeah.
The Wolverine back to the yellow costume will always be No Doubt's Tragic Kingdom for me because that was always in my stereo.
My wife loves that album. Like loves that album, dude. Yeah, and then I got into Iron Maiden, dude. I made friends that were big into punk. You know, it's just I don't know. It's that middle school to high school era of just, you know, trying out new music. I expanded my horizons with comic books too, trying independent stuff. But no, this is my X-Men. Like when people talk about what's the best X-Men era, it's usually the era, you know, that when you were a kid.
They started, yeah.
And
I think the tricky thing, and we can go on to what's in this era now. I think the tricky thing about people who get excited to start here is there's a little bit of an X-Men disassembled vibe. Like if you start at the beginning of Mutant Massacre, you are at the beginning of Claremont methodically taking the team apart over the course of 50 issues. So like if you were like looking for kind of a golden era where they're just together doing X-Men stuff in every issue, that's not what this is. It's still fantastic. And I think a lot of people started here because one of the first oversized hardcovers of X-Men, other than the first Uncanny Omnibus, was the original small Mutant Massacre oversized hardcover. And I think it plays well for a lot of people. But again, I always like to temper our recommendations with like what's good, what's bad. Great era, amazing art, all the characters you love, and some you don't even know that well, like Longshot. But the team is in a constant state of breaking up. So let's see what's part of this era on the next slide.
Oh, the breakup is the best part, though.
So this, we're doing this twice. We're doing it twice. So the first time we're talking about flagship Omnis that do not give a crap about the events and only collect the main thread of Claremont. So in this era, in flagship, is there a gap left? Yes, there is a small gap even after the next one that Omar just announced prior to Inferno. So if we go to the next slide, this is when the visuals are going to get really important. Let's cruise on down the left side here. We have the recently announced Uncanny X-Men Volume 6. It's going to Uncanny X-Men 231. Then we have material that leads up to Inferno and Inferno itself. Even if you have the Inferno Omnibus, you won't have all of that. There's no purely Uncanny X-Men book that collects that now yet. That will be Uncanny X-Men Omnibus Volume 7. Right, Omar?
Yes, but if you, I mean...
It exists, but it does not exist in the pure Uncanny only form.
Yeah, that would be just Uncanny Volume 7. It exists in the event line.
Which we'll get to. So then... after that, we come to Uncanny X-Men 244, and the question is Marvel going to just leave these Claremont omnibuses that already exist alone, or are they going to say, "Ooh, you know what? Actually, we could go back and do that better. We're going to have an Uncanny X-Men Volume 8 and an Uncanny X-Men Volume 9." We don't know.
Yeah, 100%.
You think so?
Yes. Yes. It's
okay.
It's,
whoa.
Two reasons. I'm just surprised you're asking me. Two reasons. Number one, they love money. Number two, they know they're X-Men fans. They know us. They know we have X-Men by Claremont and Jim Lee. Most of us are going to buy Uncanny X-Men Omnibus Volume 8. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because why would you not? They'll add one damn issue in there, and it could be a Marvel Comics Present 8-pager.
Probably.
And my dumb ass, would be like, yeah, please. Which cover? But
I just want people to think about that when they're thinking about buying it, that like there's always this, in this period, there's this future uncertainty.
You'll have the letter pages, the touch-up art, the artwork restoration. There is a reason why people only... I know I have several viewers that are super excited about Uncanny X-Men Volume 6. And then some viewers are like, what's the point of this? I already have this.
Right, for some people, it's very all or nothing. It's like, if it's been an omnibus and it's oversized and they've been collecting for a long time, they're like, I have it. I'm not going to buy it again just because it's like got a different cover and it's in a different order or whatever.
I envy those people. I wish I was those people, but no, I got problems.
Now, I will say Saturday Morning fan 3123 is saying, don't forget the minis. There's a lot of minis integrated in this. Again, since we're going flagship only, we're keeping the focus on how do I just keep reading X-Men. Some of those minis have a huge impact on X-Men, and they're collected alongside of it, like X-Men Fantastic Four, X-Men Avengers, but that's just not what we're putting on the screen right now because the text is already really small. The other thing to talk about is the Extinction Agenda Omnibus, which is like, yeah, it's an event omnibus. It also collects 2 annual crossovers event, Days of Future Present and Kings of Pain. So it's kind of like, if we get to Uncanny X-Men Volume 8, 9, will that just blow through all that and recollect all of it? Probably, but it exists. And so you could just have all of that on its own right now. But if you're trying to stay in that Uncanny X-Men only lane in the left right now, in this period, we only have Volume 6.
I knew Chuck Austin was going to be in the chat one of these.
We'll get there, Joker. And I'm an Austin apologist, so you just wait. All right, Omar. So now let's look at the other side. Everybody wants to go there anyway. This is the event version. What do we mean? I feel like you and I coined this. This came from us, right? This idea of the event omnis. You and I made that up.
I'm just going to go ahead and coin a lot of things, a lot of terminology I come up with. So at least my kids have some sense of legacy that I leave behind.
I feel like nobody had talked about them that way until we got to that like Prelude to Mutant Massacre, and people were like, I don't understand. I thought they were just going to meet up. And you and I started getting on streams and being like, well, you're talking about event books.
Yep. And the event line is something that I think we started calling it that because, I mean, that's kind of the way they were building their books at the time. We didn't know one day they were going to give us an Uncanny 5. Exactly. We thought everything was thought ahead. Uncanny 5 answered I know it pissed off a lot of people, but it answered a lot of questions for us that they don't care about Omni mappings before this line. Like, they're going to go through it. Like, I just announced, what was it? Daredevil Omnibus Volume 4. 5 is going to double dip all of that Miller, the Miller stuff. Of course, it'll have the original colors. It won't have it'll have the Steve Ditko issue that's missing from the Miller Omnibus. But yeah, it's crazy. This is so true. But at this pace, we could wait like 8 years to get Uncanny for 8, which is very, very true. And that's always the thing I've said. It's like when people ask me, my brother asked me, like, which should I get? He's into Krakoa, which we'll get to in a little bit. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, about an hour. But it's always a question like, which way should I get? My mentality, and please, this is just me, is, it's out now, I'm going to get it now. Because I don't know how long it's going to be before the next volume. I don't know how long it's going to take. But some people are patient. Some people, obviously, we have patient people that collected the Masterworks. Oh man, and yes, this is another one. We mapped that out a while back.
It's on the Tiger Eyes poll if you want to vote for it. And well, let's talk about what this is. So each of these books do not just collect Uncanny X-Men. They collect the 3 big X books, which was Uncanny X-Men, X-Factor, and New Mutants. Wolverine was happening at the same time as this. Sometimes there's like a Wolverine issue, I think, in 1 or 2 of these. But he doesn't really participate in the Linewide events. He's got his own thing happening. Excalibur was at arm's length at this point, and so Excalibur is not really participating in this. So if you keep buying these books, you pretty much get everything across all 3 of those main X books. That stops after Inferno, and we don't have any book that does that between Inferno and Extinction Agenda, which is where this idea of Inferno Aftermath comes from. In the same way that wishful thinking created the book that comes before this, which is Mutant Massacre Prelude, people are trying to wish into being the idea of an Inferno Aftermath that continues this line that collects X-Factor, New Mutants, and Uncanny X-Men all at the same time in the same book to get us all the way to Extinction Agenda. Really, we'd probably need 2 books to get there. So let's look at the next slide and think about this coverage. It's totally covered. In a way, those Chris Claremont, Jim Lee omnibuses are kind of like neither here nor there. They're not in either category because they're not true event omnibuses. They only have Uncanny X-Men in them, but they're not true Uncanny X-Men omnibuses because they don't follow a Masterworks or an Epic map. So they're kind of like we're learning, I think, that they're kind of a third category of thing, which is crazy. But if you want to get all the way from 210 to 243, you could do that in those 4 event books, Mutant Massacre Massacre Omnibus, Fall of the Mutants Omnibus, Inferno Prologue Omnibus, and Inferno Omnibus. Then you could buy X-Men by Claremont and Lee Volume 1, or you could wait for an Inferno Aftermath, which is going to be 2 volumes. And then you would pick up Extinction Agenda, and then there's just kind of a little tiny bit after the Extinction Agenda, which is about half of Claremont and Lee Volume 2.
And yeah, and that would take you up to the 91 relaunch. So even if you just want to stay with X-Men, your best bet is to just wait if you're patient for those future volumes. But X-Men relies so heavy on crossovers that even if you're just going to get the X-Men line, you're still going to have the crossovers. And their Inferno will have issues of X-Factor in there. Extinction Agenda will have those 3 issues of X-Factor and 3 issues of New Mutants. And then, of course, the Kings of Pain, which I think is the most collected crossover. I'm serious.
Well, Extinction Agenda is getting close at this point.
Yeah, but look, New Warriors has it.
Kings of Pain has New Warriors too. Yeah, I mean, I guess if I had to prognosticate a little bit, and you have to think I have no insider info because I'm not a good friend of Marvel like Omar. They have that restraining order still running in 2026. I would say, in my gut, I think that they're waiting to do anything else like Inferno Aftermath until they complete the X-Factor and the New Mutants line. Because if they put them out, they've learned their lesson. When they put things out around the same time, people get really twisted.
Oh, yeah.
So since X-Factor 1 and New Mutants 3 both sold, I think, pretty well from what I've heard, I think they're going to complete the X-Factor line. They're going to complete the New Mutants line. Then they're going to let those sit. So the little remainders of them will hit Ollie's. Everybody will think they were terrible because people think that if the dump turns down their stuff was bad. Then we'll get to a point that they're like, surprise, Inferno Aftermath. I really think that's what's going to happen. Anyway,
I hope right.
Ed Martin says, Omar, what Claremont era do you prefer in quality, the bronze half or the event half?
I think the kid in me has always been the event, because that's when the line was just growing. That's when the expanded family was getting invited to the cookout. That's when, you had characters interacting with each other, and one thing was happening in one book that would affect the other book, especially between the pages of X-Factor and X-Men, even though the two were not really supposed to talk. Really want a remap of In Between Inferno and Blue and Gold. Yeah, it would be the Inferno Aftermath.
We'll get there eventually. It'll happen. We got to let those other books come out first.
11 years to collect the gap between Uncanny to Lee Claremont Volume 2. Good luck.
Oh my experiment.
But look. Here's something to keep in mind. Okay, this like 11 years sounds like a long time, but we started the Carl Barks library collection 12 years ago, and we're still waiting on that line to finish. Krakoa lasted for 5 years, and to a lot of people, it was their first X-Men book, and it was forever. Like it felt like forever. And I don't mean that as a joke, like it was bad and you were just wasting your time in Krakoa. I mean that it feels like when you're in it and you're caught up in it, it feels like a long time. My Outback era was 5 years, if that, which is crazy because as a kid, that was the longest time I've ever seen the X-Men outside of the mansion, spending their time in Australia, which is just nuts. Time is like that, dude. It'll be here before you know it. Peter and I will be a lot older, going, I don't know what format or platform we'll be using. Like IVX was 10 years ago. I remember when I was a kid.
Oh my gosh, One Wheelchair. That means I've known you for almost 10 years, which is absolutely wild and crazy talk.
You and I interacted when we were both in the Masterworks forum.
Oh, I mean One Wheelchair. I knew One Wheelchair when I think almost 10 years at this point. He also points out accurately the one time we see Excalibur pop up in this event line is during Inferno, because they have 2 Inferno tie-in issues.
Yeah,
very good issues.
I don't know when we're getting a reprint of Astonishing X-Men. Please come and vote, though. 11 years sounds like a long time. It may sound like it, but I promise it will fly by. And I'll tell you what put it all into perspective for me. When I was a kid, I came into Uncanny X-Men with 168. Jean Grey was dead. And then she came back to life. And I thought Jean Grey had been dead for like for as long as I was had been collecting comics. And then she came back in what's it called? X Factor, right? She had been dead longer when Grant Morrison killed her in New X-Men to when she came back in Phoenix Resurrection. That was crazy to me because as a kid, I was like, no way. Jean Grey had been dead so long when I was a kid. And now it's like, nope, it's not as long as it was when after Grant killed her.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So if you think this was complicated, buckle up, friends, because we're going to the 90s. So let's talk about the next era, which is getting a lot of attention right now because it's getting reprints. There's a cartoon that looks just like it. It is the 90s, which we had to break into multiple parts because there are so many books to talk about.
Oh
so
my
this
God.
first part, get ready. Get ready, Omar. Drink that coffee. So
okay.
this is from 1991 to the Age of Apocalypse in 1995. That's the first chunk we're going to talk about. I think this is the best place to start X-Men if you're willing to not be super modern, because it's going to feel really familiar. It's got the huge cast of characters all in one book. It's not like some of them are in X Factors. They're all there in the two books. The costumes look just like the cartoon. And it's snappy. I know some people don't feel like Scott Lobdell is one of the best writers. I understand that. I personally love Fabian Nicieza. He's one of my favorite X-writers of all time.
Yeah, you're damn right he is.
But the issues just snap so much. The art is so good. Even if it's like a little eye-rolly and like 90s, it just moves. And I think that if you want to like hoover up a large amount of X-Men and you want to start at some prior point to like Krakoa or Bendis or Utopia, I really think you can't go wrong starting here.
Best-selling comic book of all time, X-Men #1. Seriously, like I don't know if we'll ever see numbers like that again.
Oh no.
Best-selling comic book of all time.
Well, let's get into it, because this is another section that we had to break into two different parts, because much like the event Omnis versus the streamlined Uncanny Omnis, we're seeing kind of two versions of how this is collected, and it is the #1 question on omnibus focused Reddit over the past 6 months. Every day, constantly, there's always somebody who wants this answered. So Omar, we really gotta nail it. And there it is, Jamie C 4799 with the question.
We're gonna answer that, and I'll tell you a little bit more of what Marvel has told me. And again, the video tomorrow is gonna explain that too. But hopefully we would have done our job tonight. I filmed that video 4 days ago, and I even said, Crisis and I are getting together on Friday, and I hope we did our job. So 90s X-Men, splitting it up into different parts because, oh my gosh, there was so much X-Men. This is when the X-Men, were so popular that Marvel was like, we need to have 2 different books. We need to have an adjectiveless X-Men. They had done the same thing with Spider-Man, what was that, 1990? 91, 92. Yeah, 91. 90. So a year prior to this, that was the #1 best-selling comic. Before that, it was X-Force #1. But
what's wild is X-Men had been a huge sales force through the 80s. It had broken through into kind of mainstream media in a couple of small ways. It had a video game, and then, later, a little bit into this era, had the arcade game. But X-Men, the way that X-Men had expanded, because there were so many mutants, were to just add more titles. X-Factor, New Mutants, Wolverine, Excalibur, right? It was still one main Uncanny X-Men, and it was, one of Marvel's longest running books, along with all of their other Silver Age books. Whereas if you went to DC in this period, there's 4 Superman titles. If you went to DC, there were multiple Batman titles. There were 3 Spider-Man titles already before they added adjectiveless. In 1991, Marvel's like, we have so many primary X-Men cast members that we can split this into 2 books. And so the co-flagship era was born of Uncanny X-Men and what a lot of people call adjectiveless X-Men, giving it an adjective, which launched in the fall of 1991. So the first way we're going to discuss this era is with these new blue and gold omnibuses. That's why I always say omnis. So what are they? They are Uncanny X-Men and X-Men in perfect reading order with each other, just like an epic collection. And another way they're like an epic collection is they are going to skip around. We're not necessarily going to get them in order. So we got Blue and Gold, the Mutant Genesis Omnibus, and it was not labeled Volume 1. It was just called Blue and Gold Mutant Genesis. I've got it right here.
And that's I remember when I saw that spine, I thought, okay, I know what they're doing. They're going to give us more of the X-Men Blue and Gold line. And they did.
Well, it could have been a catastrophe, right? It could have been people being like, we've got this in 100, whatever. But it wound up being a sales insane smash from what I recall.
And it will be back in stock this, hold on, let me double check. It is coming back to stock in case you missed it, because I just double checked with my contact. That is coming back to stock in March. So please, if you missed it, it's going to have a shorter print run, and it'll only be the standard edition cover of X-Men Blue and Gold Mutant Genesis. But you know, the whole reason this stream started was because of Volume 1. It was so much confusion going on. And I realized, okay, I think it was time to start clarifying some questions. And oh my God, I remember when I got the Epic collection of Bishop's Crossing and doing my overview of the first printing, and I thought, I am so jealous of the Epic people, because this is the way I read X-Men. You stop.
Yeah, if you were collecting it month to month at that time, it was really tightly coordinated, and that's how you consumed it. And it was written to be consumed that way. It was not written to be separated. It was really, there's times when Spider-Man or Batman or Superman really are separate titles and you can follow them each individually. And then there's periods like the Triangle era of Superman where every title is working in concert to tell a complete story. That's what this first half of the 90s is for X-Men. They're telling one story with a massive, massive cast. So Blue and Gold 1 exists. It actually slightly overlaps the Claremont and Lee Volume 2 Omnibus by 3 issues, because it just so happens that Claremont wrote the first 3 issues of this co-flagship era. And it collects all of Executioner's Song, and it collects the Shattershot annual crossover. It doesn't collect everything that was in that Shattershot book, though, and we're going to get to that. So since it didn't say Volume 1, people were like, oh, maybe this is it. I mean, it's a great tie-in to the cartoon. It's a really fun read. There was no promise there was going to be more. Then a mischievous little imp named Omar announced pretty recently that there's going to be an X-Men Blue and Gold Blood Ties omnibus.
Which is what, ironically enough, you and I named our Volume 2, because we thought, okay, if they ever make a Volume 2 of this, let's, you know, let it be the end cap to it and call it Blood Ties. So instead, it looks like, you know, and people were upset. And let me tell you something.
I was upset. When he says people, he means me. That's why there's still a restraining order.
I already knew how you were going to feel. I emailed Marvel before I even recorded the video, because I knew the reaction that I was going to get. Because I've been doing this for 7 years now, going on 8, you know, announcing books. I know what people's reaction are going to be. It's going to confuse people. Why would they not collect 298 up? Why are they starting at 307? Why are you collecting X-Men 26 and not starting with issue number 17? What the hell? So part of it is, you know, communication. I think that was the one thing that was lacking. And I wrote a very diplomatic email with all the missing issues that I think should be collected in other Omnis. And I asked them, and I mean, it was a detailed. I shared it with Peter before I sent it. It was a detailed email about how there is an importance to people knowing that there is a Volume 2 coming. Like if I can tell people that there's going to be a Blue and Gold book in between both of these, I think they can rest assured that they're happy to go and buy the Blood Ties book. And Marvel got back to me and they told me that there is. So there is. I don't know what they're going to call it. I don't know when it will come out. How it's going to be mapped. It could be mapped, you know, like the way we have it mapped, along with the other issues that are not X-Men and Uncanny, but it will come. And I was like, that's what we need. We need assurance from the publisher that they knew they were purposely skipping a book. And I kind of knew why. And I wasn't.
Yeah, it makes sense.
From a marketing standpoint and a selling, like, you want to get rid of all your copies of Fatal Attractions first, right? Like, that needs to sell out. And then we'll give you the book that people want. So that's what this is. Let me get these 2 super chats.
Oh yeah, get some super chats, and then I want to talk technical stuff.
All I saw was the title of this live video, and 100% knew Crisis would be here. And glad to see I was right. Thanks so much, Crisis. I can't do this without my buddy. Did I miss a discussion about the Inferno Aftermath? That is actually going to be in our Most Wanted Omni. So if you want that book, we do have it mapped out, and it will be in that poll when that comes out.
And if you want to hear if it should exist, why we think it should exist, why we think it's not out yet. We talked about that like 10 minutes ago.
You just barely missed it. And what we're doing is talking about Marvel's releases of the X-Men line, just the main X-Men and Uncanny X-Men, not things like Wolverine or Excalibur or New Mutants. That's what we're discussing today. What's up, Cody? Just did a video with
Hey, bro. All right, so I'm sorry, just broed you. I never say bro. I don't know.
No.
Okay, so we have Blue and Gold Mutant Genesis, which is effectively Volume 1. We have Blue and Gold Blood Ties, which even though it's the second one to come out, it's effectively Volume 3. And you heard Omar just say Marvel has confirmed they do plan to go back and do another Blue and Gold for the space between those books. What is the space between those books? It's the Uncanny X-Men material that's in Fatal Attractions. It's the adjectiveless X-Men material that is in the Shattershot Oversized Hardcover. And then also there's one issue that's in the Phalanx Covenant Oversized Hardcover that was collected early. So that's why people are like, I don't know, should I buy all these other books? I want to fill in the gaps right now. I'm like, this is like patience, young Skywalker. You have to just be patient, because if you buy Fatal Attractions, great book, love to read it. I've read it several times. You're still going to be missing other stuff. And that other stuff is spread across 2 other additional books. You should if you're committed to Blue and Gold, and you want Blue and Gold on your shelf, then you should stick with it and just wait for Blue and Gold Volume 2. We'll talk about how Fatal Attractions fits into this in a couple of slides. Then after Blue and Gold Volume 3, we know what's left. It is what is in Phalanx Covenant, there's one issue that's in Fatal Attractions that is a later issue, and the Legion Quest Oversized Hardcover. So I think, and Omar, I think you think too, we will probably get a Blue and Gold Volume 4 at some point.
Oh, well, yeah, there's no way we don't. I don't know if they'll call it Legion Quest. Honestly, I'm trying to think of the other storyline that was taking place, because it is the lead into Age of Apocalypse. And I don't know if it'll be mapped like Legion Quest will be, because Legion Quest also had those issues of X Factor in there. And that's the thing, right? Like that Phalanx Covenant, that Fatal Attractions Omnibus that just came out has those extra issues of X Factor. If Blue and Gold, when Blue and Gold Volume 2, I don't think
it will not.
Yeah,
no,
those issues of X Factor will not be included in there. So that's what's going on. And can we please? Yes, I talked to Peter about this. I'm like, Peter, am I crazy? Where's the Rogue miniseries in omnibus format? And Peter was like, I don't think we've had it in omnibus format. No. And I'm like, oh my God, I think I'm crazy, because I remember thinking that it fits into this. Why didn't I get it added into this book? And I think it was
Bishop or Gambit, and the Gambit miniseries would actually be in this Volume 2 that will eventually comes, because it's in those Epic collections. So that's the other thing. The Blue and Gold line has the ability to heal some things. You have to think that those event versions, which we'll get into what's in them in a second, there's a whole other slide. Marvel was releasing them because, again, that's what people were really into and what was hot selling in the course of the 2010s. But because of how they're broken up, they had to fix all these problems. One of them jumped ahead, so then another one had to reach back. X-Men Unlimited, which is really kind of a third flagship here because it tells really big stories for like 1 or 2 X-Men at a time. They messed up the collection of X-Men Unlimited so badly that Legion Quest had to like catch up on several issues of X-Men Unlimited that had been skipped by prior books. So even though all the issues are covered in that event line, and you could have total coverage, it's total coverage across, I believe we'll see it in a second, 8 books. And so this will be total coverage across 4 books when we get the other 2. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm saying make your choices intelligently.
Unless you got, a lot of money, then you can just buy whatever the hell you want to.
Or you're just a dumbass with a sickness like me and Omar, and then you're going to buy them all anyway.
I don't want to talk about how many times I bought that goddamn Death and Return of Superman book. All right.
All right. So now let's talk same material, but we're just talking about the other side of the material, which is in these 8 event books. Let's just go to the visual and let's just do it. Let's just look through the chart. So it's so small that none of you can see it. I know, because that's how many books there are. First, there's X-Men by Chris Claremont and Jim Lee Volume 2. That actually goes past the end of Claremont all the way to X-Men Adjectiveless issue number of 11, but only the A stories. Then there's Bishop's Crossing. Bishop's Crossing has what's happening in Uncanny X-Men at that point, which was not in the Claremont and Lee Omnibus Volume 2, and it picks up those couple of missing pieces from X-Men 1991 to get us to Executioner Song. But wait, we're not Executioner Song yet, because then we need the Shattershot OHC, which actually straddles Executioner Song. First, it collects the Shattershot annuals, which happened before Executioner Song. Then is the Executioner Song OHC, which is where we come to the end of what's in Blue and Gold Volume 1. But wait, there's more material in the Shattershot OHC. The Shattershot OHC then continues to collect X-Men 1991 through issue 24. Why does it do that? Because the next book, Fatal Attractions, which just got reprinted with a formal omnibus name, Fatal Attractions only collects the Uncanny X-Men side of things. It continues from Uncanny X-Men 298 to 30. That's too small for me to say 4 or 5. 5.
Hold on. I'm trying to get rid of it, but it won't let me get rid of the counter here.
I wasn't thinking about that. That
it's not your fault. This will be on our Patreon, by the way. I'm so sorry. Oh wait, it went away.
I think if you're not like actively clicking, it goes away. It's like a guidance.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay. But wait, we're not done. So now Fatal Attraction ends. Now we get to the Wedding of Cyclops and Phoenix, which is the first time in this whole list of books that a book actually puts the proper issues of Uncanny X-Men and X-Men together, other than during the direct crossover of Executioner Song. That's why Blue and Gold Blood Ties look so much like the Wedding book, because the Wedding book is the one coherent book in this stack of books. So things are briefly coherent for the Wedding book. Then the Phalanx Covenant book happens, which has all of the Phalanx Covenant crossover, not just what's in Uncanny and X-Men, but because it's so focused on the Phalanx Covenant story, it skips issues of X-Men Unlimited that it needs, which means then Legion Quest, which is the final book in this area, has to reach back for some issues of X-Men Unlimited and an annual, which should have been placed earlier, but they had to put it there because it would have been abandoned and there was nowhere else for it to go. I own all these books, and if you do own all these books, you have every issue of Flagship. What are you missing? Gambit, Bishop, and Rogue, because they got skipped here, but so they're not in oversized hardcover.
Okay, you're 100% on that Bishop, because now I'm second guessing myself. I thought Bishop was collected in an Omni.
I will check.
But listen, this is like me messaging you at 2:00 in the morning the other day, going, am I crazy, or is Rogue not collected in an omnibus format? I could have sworn Bishop had been collected somewhere. Like in the
I'm looking right now. We'll know the answer. I mean, neither Omar nor I are infallible, and that's why I said, we could get on the stream and it could suck. We really don't know. So Bishop was in Marvel Firsts, and it had its own trade paperback, and I think that might be it.
So 315 being collected in Omni before 314 is insane. That was because that's the way they map things differently back then. They map things without thinking ahead. They were like, oh, this issue has something to do with the Phalanx Covenant. What was it, 305? Bishop,
right, they were trying to put complete stories together.
Yeah. Okay, there I go. Okay, so then they have the chance to rectify leaving out Gambit, Bishop, and Rogue with Blue and Gold 2 and 4. Hell yes. Hell yes.
So I just want to point out, people see this now with the power of hindsight, and they're like, Marvel, those assholes. Like, they want to get angry about it. Like the whole 315 being collected before 314. At the time, we loved these. Like, I was around for every one of these coming out because I was already collecting at this point. Right. Every one of these was like, yes, yes, yes. And Marvel, to their credit, they did not miss a single flagship issue in these. They puzzled it together. Those editors and collection editors were working hard. There's no Unlimited issue left behind. There's no issue of X-Men or Uncanny X-Men left behind. These 8 books do the job. Now that we have an alternative in Epic Collections and in Blue and Gold, it looks a little messy. But let's give them some credit. There are a lot of ways this could have failed, and this bookshelf will now always be able to exist. And plus, Omar, I bet when the other Blue and Golds come out, these will start hitting the resale market a little bit more. Right now, they're so precious and expensive because people are gripping them close to their chests. But over time, if you decide you want to go this route, I bet they'll be easier to pick up.
I don't keep up with that stuff, but I wonder how much the price of the Wedding of Cyclops and Phoenix has dropped after the announcement of Blood Ties. So I am going to go to the next slide. Is that okay?
Yeah, I think let's exit the early 90s. So this is easy. This is the easiest one we have to talk about. But Omar and I get to put a fun footnote on this. So that last period ends with Legion Quest. Then the whole line gets interrupted for 4 months for the Age of Apocalypse, and then we roll onward to Onslaught. This is the period that made me quit not only collecting X-Men comics, but I stopped collecting comics for over a decade because I thought it was so bad. Omar, how did you feel about it?
Well, you know, I had other interests at the time, and 1996 was the last comic book I bought for a long time. I was going to college. I was seeing a girl that lived outside of my town, so I had to drive, so I needed gas money. I needed a car. Like, I don't know. You know, I think with Onslaught, I tell you, it was the issue with Professor Xavier leaving the team with Andy Kubert's art. And I think it was the aftermath of Onslaught that I said, I think this is a good sign that this is it for me. I'm out.
Yeah.
This was stupid. I hated the Onslaught event. I hated No Nose Wolverine. The only saving grace for me to stay was the art. And even my favorite writer at the time, Fabian Nicieza, had gotten fired off of the book. Both books,
yeah.
X-Force and X-Men. And I'm like, yeah, Mark Waid is good, but I don't know. This is just so different. So X-Men broke me, or X-Men Onslaught broke me, and I left. I left, and it, you know, and part of me, it felt like breaking up with somebody, because from time to time I had friends that still collected comics, and I'm like, what's going on with the X-Men these days?
Oh, I was the same. Anytime I met anybody who was a comic reader, or like, especially when Uncanny X-Men Net came around, they started to have recaps of issues. I was like, I was like a jealous ex. I was like, how are they doing? Are they well? Are they dating anybody? What do they look like? Have they lost weight? Like, I wanted to know everything that was happening, but I was staunch that I was not going to buy it.
It was like keeping up with an ex. I'm like, you know, out of curiosity, what is Jean, did she ever become the Phoenix again, or did her and Cyclops stay married? Do they know about Cable? Like, you know, and I know deep down I would come back one day, and sure enough, I did. A few years later with Astonishing X-Men, or really New X-Men is what got me back, and then Astonishing kind of sealed the deal for me. So yeah, this is the era where we both quit, yet it's like 95 to 96. We needed its own slide for part 2.
But the thing I'll say about this, because I don't want to just trash any era. Every era is somebody's first. Every era is somebody's favorite. Mm-hmm. I think at the time, it just felt like this dragged on for so long. Like the hint of the Jean and Onslaught thing had happened when Bishop came back to the past in 1991 or the beginning of 1992. Here we are in 1995, and I think we were all used to long-running plots in X-Men, but especially when the lead up to Onslaught was like 10 issues, it just really felt like we had reached 90s excess. That said, now you can just sit down and read it in an omnibus on your lap all in one day. You're not going to have that feeling that Omar and I had. So I think it's actually, now that I'm rereading it with Kid Crisis, which is where we are right now still, it's actually kind of fun to read because it's snappy, it's quick, it's not, you know, the Sabretooth plot is amazing. There's a lot of good stuff in this period, and I think it reads way better in omnibus when you can binge it than it did for us back in the day.
I wonder if you'll feel the same about From the Ashes when you come back. When Kid Crisis is reading From the Ashes, you're like,
how many years are we going to have to wait? So this is, I'm saying nice things about this. What is it, 30 years? I can't do math. 30 years later.
Oh my God.
So I'll say nice things about From the Ashes finally in 2055. Let's look at the visual of this because it's pretty straightforward. And then move your mouse so we get rid of the little thinger.
Wait, no.
Okay. So first comes the Age of Apocalypse Omnibus. People get hung up on the fact that the Age of Apocalypse Omnibus has these couple of issues of Uncanny X-Men in, and they're like, well, they shouldn't be repeated. No, the Age of Apocalypse Omnibus just needs those because it characterizes why the event is happening. So Age of Apocalypse is its own thing. You can skip it. Like, things about it impact the main line, but it is altogether an alternate pocket reality. But that's kind of like where this begins. Then there is the Road to Onslaught Omnibus, which picks up directly after that. It's based on the mapping of the Road to Onslaught trades, and it's got a couple of extra things in it, thanks to Omar giving Marvel notes. Because originally, these 2 Road to Onslaught books were just going to be one book, but Omar's like, what about this? What about this? What about this? And so they became more complete, and they have every possible thing in them, including an unbroken run of Uncanny X-Men, an unbroken run of X-Men 1991, both with their annuals intact, as well as an unbroken run of X-Men Unlimited, which really is a third flagship here. Although that was like a quarterly title at the time, and all the issues were between 2 and 4 times the normal issue length. Then finally we get
so sorry. I do need I need to say one thing. I did suggest adding things. My idea was not for them to split it up between 2 books, but that was not me.
They had to.
That was a Marvel decision. They kept asking for things to be added, and at one point, I'm sure one of those guys was like, "Screw it, let's just split it up into 2 books because this is going to be a massive book if we keep adding more books." So you're welcome, and I'm sorry that it is now 2 books. Go on, Peter.
So then we get to Onslaught, and even though I don't love this, in terms of mapping, it is kind of you can't have these issues not in Onslaught, because Onslaught, at least for X-Men and Avengers, was a very direct coordination between them. That book has all these other tie-ins. Those tie-ins are not essential to the story of the X-Men, but I sincerely doubt that we're ever going to get some omnibus that has like the X-Men issues divorced from Onslaught. They're part of Onslaught. So like if you're trying to have every X-Men flagship title, this is a time that you will need a book that's a line-wide event book in order to have every flagship X-Men issue, because it was the X-Men's event.
I think it will be something like what they've done for Epic collections, like the Avengers or the Fantastic
Four. They'll trim it down.
It'll be those important issues. This is a really good question. X-Men Avengers Omnibus reprint when? Somebody just asked, do you guys think Onslaught was popular enough for Marvel to reprint it? I missed it. It's been printed twice. So yes,
I was surprised.
It's sold out again, and despite of how I feel about it, it is a very popular event for both X-Men and Avengers. So 100% it will be reprinted one day. Don't like most books. I'm gonna say 99% of the books that Marvel can reprint that aren't licensed will be reprinted. Just joining and watching from the start. Unfortunately, I have no interest in collecting in Omni format, but I love to hear you guys talk. Oh, thank you so much.
Is so kind.
Now
I think we kind of covered this. Like there it is. There's nothing missing on the right hand side. Yeah.
Okay, moving on to the 90s, part 3, Onslaught Aftermath to Eve of Destruction. Boy,
now how do you feel about this? Because there's a lot of different material in this, and I know your love-hate with some of it. What would you say if somebody's like, what if I just start after Onslaught?
Oh man, you're in for a treat with the great artwork, because in here you're going to have a lot of Joe Mad, and you're going to have a lot of Carlos Pacheco at the very beginning. You're going to have the cancellation of Excalibur, so a lot of the main characters that you love, like Kitty Pryde, like Nightcrawler, and Colossus, will come back to the X-Men.
In this issue, on this cover, yeah.
But you'll also have Maggot, Marrow, who makes a really cool character in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and visually it looks pretty cool, but also okay. Who was the other character they added? Cecilia Reyes, right?
I love her.
Did she ever get a code name? I can't remember.
No, they try once or twice, and it's like she's like, no.
Yeah. So this era is one of those that here we'll get to the next slide. Actually, I'm sorry. No. Before I go to the next slide, so very, very, very hit and miss. Some good stories and some stories about Cyclops fighting a murder of crows. And I wish I was kidding. Oh, Chris Bachelot actually doing a lot of the artwork in here too. What did you think, Peter, of this era?
I've had to come back to this, and Marvel did eventually cover it completely in trade. So we're waiting for some of it to get covered in Omnibus, but it has all been reprinted at one point or another, except for some issues of Unlimited. And, or no, maybe they're covered too. But point being, it's interesting because it's just so many different pieces. Like there's that piece right after Onslaught, and it's still really like huffing those 90s fumes and like trying to do some sinister stuff and some Gambit stuff and like tie in all that. Then we get to Operation Zero Tolerance. That's okay. I don't love it as much as other people do. Then I think there's a secret golden era in the middle of this, which this issue covers from, which is when Steve Siegel's writing one title and Joe Kelly is writing the other title. They got a pair of trades back in 2017 that was called X-Men Blue Volume 0 and X-Men Gold Volume 0. They just did it for marketing, because that's what the books were called at the time. I would love to see that in an omnibus. I think it reads great. I think it's a great era. Unfortunately, their plots got cut short because they both had to leave the books. But after that, it's kind of hit or miss. So that's probably my favorite part of this. And it's probably the one part of this you could start cold and have fun. And the rest of it kind of meanders a little bit. But let's get into what's been in omnibus and what's not, because this is the first time we're going to hit some true gaps. True gaps. So the beginning of this is taken care of, which we'll see in the next slide, with Onslaught, Aftermath, and Trial of Gambit. Again, another book that almost was one book, and once Marvel realized how much stuff was in that period, it got split into two. Then there's some question as to whether we can count the Operation Zero Tolerance book as part of this or not. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Well, it's an OHC, so I mean, if they reprint it, they're gonna reprint it just like that, like they did Fatal Attraction.
Right. But they could expand it too. So it's kind of like, is it like, yeah, is it going to stay the same, or are they going to collect through it, basically? So then there's a little bit of a gap where all that Kelly Siegel stuff happens. And then we pick back up like a year and a half later in the 12, and then we do X-Men Revolution. And then we do Eve of Destruction. Omar, if I'm not mistaken, please help me out here. I think Eve of Destruction is not technically an omnibus, right? It's an oversized hardcover.
Eve of Destruction is actually an oversized hardcover. Revolution was an omnibus, but yeah, Eve of Destruction was only printed as an OHC. A lot of these at the time were only OHC.
Right. But I think that's interesting, because with OHCs, there's always this question, and we're going to hit this a few times, although I guess we're almost done now. They're out of the 90s of, would Marvel go back and just reprint the OHC on its own, which they do very, very occasionally? Would they go back and rebrand the OHC in omnibus, which they have done many times for X-Men, like Fall of the Mutants, like Fatal Attractions? Or would they just recollect it into an expanded or improved reading experience in an omnibus? When it comes to Eve of Destruction, other than Omar's favorite X-Men Magic and X-Men Black Sun, there's really not a ton you could improve the order. So it's kind of an omnibus already, but it gets that footnote. So now that we've probably thoroughly confused you, and trust me, this is a confusing period, let's look at the visual.
Just I have a funny story about that too. I don't think I've ever told you. I never thought I would get this question. How long before Gold Balls is introduced? There was a time that YouTube would pull that name, like they would put it in a spam because it's Gold Balls. And then what's the deal with Gen X? Gen X, I think the art has to be restored because it's got that bad 90s scans for the first, oh my gosh, for the first couple of years almost. This really makes me appreciate the reading order videos. Oh, thank you so much. And if you like my videos, go and check out Crushing Crisis, because everything that I've done, like oh my gosh, meticulously puts together. And he also does it like issue by issue, which is just, that's another form of insanity. Okay.
Adds in my many forms. So now we can really visualize that gap, and let's just take it a little bit at a time. So we have the X-Men Onslaught Aftermath Omnibus. Perfect, no notes. It's exactly what we'd want it to be. It's 1996 and 1997. It covers comprehensively Uncanny X-Men, X-Men, and X-Men Unlimited. Then we have the Trial of Gambit Omnibus. And what's interesting about that is it has a lot more Uncanny issues than it has X-Men issues, because the plot in Uncanny was just moving faster. Like in reading order, you want that big chunk of Uncanny there. And that omnibus is all from 1997. It's all within a single year of release. Then towards the end of 1997, X-Men gets into Operation Zero Tolerance, which is its own oversized hardcover that is very hard to come by. But as you can see, as we continue down, there's a chance that we could get an omnibus that has that and some more. Because then we go into the Kelly and Siegel period of Uncanny X-Men and X-Men from 351, 359 in Uncanny, and 71 to 79 in X-Men. So it's 10 issues of each. So that could easily get lumped in with that Zero Tolerance stuff and make an omnibus, right? We're not mapping here. I'm just pointing it out. Then there's a storyline called The Hunt for Professor X that's been in trade. It's never been an omnibus. Now we're getting into 1999. Then we get into the Magneto War. I'm pretty sure that hasn't been an omnibus, right?
You are 100% correct. And that with The Hunt for Professor X, 100% could be an omnibus.
Kind of feels like another omnibus, doesn't it? But we're not here to map. Then we get to two omnibuses that I don't think I really would change anything about. The 12 omnibus and the X-Men Revolution omnibus that has issues of Unlimited, has a complete unbroken run of both flagships. And then that Eve of Destruction book, it is technically an OHC. It has everything you could want in the flagships. There's no error in the flagships. Could they expand it into an omnibus? Yeah, there's a couple of odds and ends they could cram in there, but I think they could just as easily reprint it as an omnibus and we would all be happy.
Give me that Black Sun magic.
You're a freak.
I just want it somewhere. This is the point in the class where I just hope none of this shows up on the test. Well, the good
This
thing
is one of the most confusing periods. I spent the longest on this slide trying to understand like what was missing, what order, how is it grouped. This one just didn't make any sense to me for a while.
Okay, so you know the longest I spent when I do my reading orders, because I like to go back and reread some stories that I'm like, oh, what happened here? Was actually the era after this. It's that weird Jeff Lemire, Dennis Hopeless, and I'm like, oh my god, I need to reread all this to make sense of a reading order because it wasn't that good. The Trial of Gambit. Oh man, I hate that retcon so much, dude. I can't believe that's gonna be an omnibus, but that's another one like Peter was sharing. You know, we kept adding, we kept suggesting things that they could add, and they were like, oh my gosh, let's just make another omnibus out of this. So Omar will shut the hell up. And I speak for the people. It wasn't just me. It's what you all wanted, but it's coming. Okay.
Yeah. So there's room. It looks like there's room for 2 more omnibuses, basically, that we're missing. We're not here to map, but there's a gap. When you get to the end of reading Trial of Gambit, you will have to switch to Trades or Marvel Unlimited. There is no omnibus to go in that gap right now. And as we move forward, you're going to see more gaps. We up until the 1995, it's the promised land. Even if it's not in the omnibus format you wanted, everything has been in an omnibus up until 95. Now things are getting crazy.
Really quick. Yes, please feel free to screenshot, you know, if you're not on our Patreon or if you're watching this later, because this is, I mean, I'm not, look, where the hell are we? Mistakes. I have to look at Peter. I don't think Peter realizes how freaking priceless this is. Like the information we're giving you all, like Peter built this, by the way, spent 30 hours. Like he needs a raise. Right now he's making $0 an hour is how much I'm paying him to be here just to hang out.
If only Marvel sent comps to New Zealand, then this would, but then they have to lift the restraining order.
No, seriously, like it is completely priceless. The information, like when I was new to collecting collected editions, oh my god, to have stumbled on a channel like this that's talking and speaking my language, I would have been in heaven. So I just wanted to take time to say thank you. And oh my god, I can't believe the amount of work that you put into this. And it's just X-Men. We're not even covering Wolverine or New Mutants, and if people want that later on, like I'm gonna volunteer Peter to do that, but you know, that's another.
Well, I would say, like, you know, Omar, I love having our ongoing shows. We've got the Evergreen show, which we love having so much. We just started with the Compendium show. We could do more of that. We used to do Map My X, but that one is very work intensive for multiple people. If you like this format and you would want us to talk about the other X-Men titles or Spider-Man or Batman, I really feel like even somebody who's mostly in one title like Captain America, I kind of think this is a fun format. So give us feedback if you like it, if you're watching this later in the comments, if you're watching it now in the live chat, because this one could be something we come back to, but nothing will ever be as crazy as X-Men. Maybe Batman. Batman would maybe be as hard as this.
No,
but I don't think Spider-Man would be as hard.
Nothing is as crazy as X-Men, dude. Nothing is as crazy.
No.
But like Spawn, you know, with all the additions of all those damn titles like King Spawn and She Spawn and Gunslinger Spawn, She Spawn wasn't ongoing, right? Anyway,
yeah, it is. It's no, She Spawn's not, but she's in the Scorched as the lead character.
Okay, let's go back to the slides here. I just wanted to take time to praise my friend. Okay, are we ready for the next slide?
Kind. All right, so now we're getting into an era where lots of people have started with this era, and for good reason.
What a fun
This
era.
is the new X-Men era. But what's crazy is there are 3 flagships in this era, and people just only have eyes for new X-Men, and for a long time forgot that there were even 2 other books. And finally, when Marvel put out Extreme X-Men Omnibus 1 and 2 recently, it's like that those trades had been so out of print. It had been almost 20 years that those trades had been out of print. I feel like sometimes people rediscover things when things come out in Omnibus. And so finally people are kind of remembering this is not just new X-Men, but you could be forgiven for thinking it was just new X-Men, because this is one of the biggest bomb blasts to ever hit the X-Men franchise, which is Grant Morrison writing it. So I would say in terms of seismic impact of a writer just coming in and changing the course of X-Men history, you've got Claremont starting in 1975, you've got Hickman with Krakoa, and in the middle, you've got Grant Morrison when they joined the X-Men line and wrote new X-Men. What do you think about that, Omar?
This era is, like I said, I had stopped reading, you know, with Onslaught, but this is the era. I remember my buddy Dennis was telling me, like, oh, you really like Grant Morrison. You liked his JLA. time, of course, he is pronoun. Now it's they. I think he goes by he too. I remember my viewers correcting me, and I never get it right. But anyway, and I'm like, yeah, I love Morrison. Please, Morrison's writing X-Men? What? So I got the E for Extinction. Like, he let me borrow his 6 issues, and I was like, okay, it's pretty good. And then, you know, from time to time, I'll be curious. And then I think I ended up getting a trade paperback because they were starting to release. This is the era. Seriously, this is the era.
This is where trades started. Yeah.
Like, if ever, you know,
regular trades.
We've joked about doing a documentary series on collected editions. This is the David Gabriel era of Marvel Comics. This is when David was like, okay, there's a certain corner that you guys are not marketing, and it is the trade paperback corner that manga is dominating. There's no reason why Marvel can't collect their books in 6-issue format and put them in trade paperback. So, I mean, he is a huge part of that. But this is that era, and everything was a game changer back then. Yeah. Not for this era. It would be, you know, we wouldn't have the collected editions we have now. But I think this is a great jumping on point for people.
And also, I think it stayed a great jumping on point because the trades were out there. I think it's hard to think of what the experience is for somebody who comes in a period that's after you were buying the comics or before you had the omnibus. I came in at a point where the omnibus was super out of print. And everybody was like, you have to read Morrison. And there were so many versions of their trades that it was easy to do. It was the first thing I got shipped from Amazon when I first moved into my own house. The second day I lived in that house, I got the first Grant Morrison trade because I was like, I'm going to treat myself. And then look at all this madness that happened after that. So people ask, should they start here? I think any comic by Grant Morrison is for a pretty savvy comic reader. And I think that some people bounce off of starting Grant Morrison Batman or Grant Morrison Animal Man or Grant Morrison X-Men just because Grant Morrison writes advanced comics. You could start here, but I think it's a place to start for somebody who knows comics already, even if they don't know X-Men already. That's just my personal opinion.
I disagree. Respectfully, of course.
Okay.
Unless we're talking about Chuck Austin or Peter Milligan. But I think this era is a really great introduction to the characters. Like, because that was one thing that Morrison did, was write for people that normally didn't check out X-Men. It's kind of like jumping into Morrison's Doom Patrol. You didn't need to read anything before Morrison's Doom Patrol to get into the madness that became Doom Patrol. And I know this is a very, divisive era. Some people hate it. Some people hated the art. Some people are known for quoting that Frank Quitely draws all his women like ugly bald dudes with bad wigs on. That's an uncanny Omar.
That's drag, baby.
That's an uncanny Omar quote, by the way. But you can't deny the fact that it was a big selling, like it was a powerhouse in Marvel Comics. Like, it brought the X-Men back to that flagship role that they had. I love that Jean Grey's eyes are right behind the double O.
I totally did that intentionally, by the way.
Okay. But
let's talk about this era, because we've talked all about new X-Men so far, but there's other books in this era. We did the same thing I accused everybody else of doing, which is like letting Morrison eclipse. By the way, Morrison does prefer them pronouns, but they have said in interviews that they're fine to have people use he for them. You'll find that a lot of people identify as non-binary say that. Doesn't mean you have to like drop a nuclear bomb on yourself if you say he by mistake, especially if they've already said it. So you don't have to go out and start any flame wars if somebody uses the word he for Grant Morrison. But let's go look at what is in this era, because it's not just new X-Men. So all of new X-Men is collected in Omnibus, done and dusted.
Yeah.
All of Extreme X-Men is collected in Omnibus, including a number of supporting miniseries that go with that, like Extreme X-Men Expose, Mechanics. It's all collected. What's not collected in this period is Uncanny X-Men, which goes through 2 different authors. We'll look at the breakup on the next slide. None of that has been in Omnibus. It has been recollected in trade in the not distant past, although they are getting a little pricey, but we're here to talk about omnibuses. And we lose that unbroken line of X-Men Unlimited here, because Unlimited really didn't have a whole lot to do with Grant Morrison. They never wrote any issues Unlimited. Claremont didn't really write a lot in Unlimited. Unlimited kind of paired more with Uncanny in this period. So it's been collected here and there in trade, but we don't have it in Omnibus. So this actually, it sounds so complicated, but now that we have the Claremont, it says X-Men. It should say Extreme X-Men. I'll fix that. The X-Men omnibuses. They should put out that book, X-Men.
You let me know when it's fixed, and I'll
Okay.
That's what
But
Chris wanted to call it, X-Men for
Yeah.
dudes that like X-Men in their X-Men. Absolutely, Chris Claremont style. Oh, Igor Cordy, sorry, is actually a phenomenal artist.
He's so cool.
When
But he was super rushed.
But when he was doing 3 single issues a month, yeah, that's it. That's
All right, you
what
can hit reload, Omar.
Okay.
So what's missing from this period are these 2 chunks of Uncanny X-Men, and they probably would be 2 of their own omnibuses. The first chunk is this chunk that's by Joe Casey. So Joe Casey took over Uncanny X-Men with 394 at the same time that Morrison takes over New X-Men and Claremont takes over Extreme X-Men. Joe Casey just doesn't stick around as long as them. He writes about 15 issues and he's out. This is a really fun, unusual run. Man, if you think Morrison's New X-Men is weird, this is equally as weird. Joe Casey was trying to match Morrison's freak. Yeah, I mean, it's where Stacy X comes from, but also if you're like, well, that sounds kind of short for an omnibus, and they have done it all in one trade, this is a chance to collect a bunch of like mini series and stragglers that from this era that kind of haven't been in a book before. Also, there's many issues of X-Men Unlimited that we could fit in there too, because the Chuck Austin run is pretty substantial, and it probably needs its own book. Chuck Austin also writes 2 issues of New X-Men that put a little cap on Morrison's run after Morrison departs, but they're not in the Morrison omnibus. They're collected with Chuck Austin stuff. So if we got a Chuck Austin book, it would have those 2 New X-Men issues in it. Also, there's the end of X-Men Unlimited, a whole 12, 13 issues of X-Men Unlimited, which at this point was no longer quarterly. That's why we see such a big chunk here when we hadn't seen a chunk before. So Casey is 2001 and 2002, and then Austin is 2002, 2003, 2004. Look, that Chuck Austin run gets a lot of hate, but he's been on the record again and again saying, they told me to contrast with the other 2 X-Men books and just write X-Men as pure soap opera, pure sudsy soap opera, and more like a manga. Even the art trended in that direction, so that's what I did. And I think it's one of those books that everybody says it's so bad because of things like the Draco, because of things like, you know, Asriel, because she lies with angels, dear God. But it's fun. I think it's fun. As somebody who likes X-Men as a soap opera, I find it to be fun.
I again respectfully disagree, but you know, I still think you're a good human being. I remember when Kia Asamiya did the internal artwork, and I was like, wow, manga is so popular in America. We have a mangaka draw Uncanny X-Men. That's insane. So despite of how I feel about this era, I actually really like Philip Tan's artwork too in the Draco.
Yeah, it's cool.
And who else? Ron Garney starts it off. And remember, this is when they were trying to get people hooked. Batman had the 10-cent issues. Uncanny X-Men had the 25-cent issue to get people hooked. Like, oh, you just saw X2? Well, guess what? We're doing God Loves Man Kills 2 in Extreme X-Men. Claremont, write that. Claremont's like, yeah, I got this, man. I know what I'm doing. Yeah. This is pretty
so Carlos Arguella is asking if they have both the New X-Men and Extreme X-Men omnibuses, which was published earlier, same time. This is a 3 flagship period, 4 if you include X-Men Unlimited. So New X-Men was happening at the same time as Extreme X-Men. And you can see the runs are both about the same length of each other. They're 40-ish issue runs. The Claremont just needs to be split in 2 because it has all of these supporting miniseries and things. And that New X-Men book is already a big book. So there was no way they were going to fit all of Extreme into one book. But yeah, it's kind of, you could switch back and forth every time you finish an arc. They don't really interact with each other that much until Bishop shows up pretty late into Grant Morrison's run, and Jean and Wolverine kind of are in both, but they don't really reference each other a ton, I would say.
I think Morrison wrote it in a year. Like, Morrison had written out their X-Men run within a year. So it didn't matter what anybody else was doing. They were telling a story that they wanted to tell. Really quick, I can't remember if you did, but did you clarify that New X-Men is still adjectiveless X-Men? Like, it just
That's changed? A good point. That's a good point. And it creates,
I just see some confusion sometimes whenever I announce a book and they were like, wait, what about, you know, I would be confused too if I was new to collecting. What about New X-Men issues 1 through 113? So because Morrison was such a big name, the title changed. They were like, oh, we're getting Morrison. We'll make it really special. We're going to call it New X-Men. And Claremont was like, well, what about me? They were like, you can have your own title called X-Men, Extreme X-Men.
X-Men. So that's something that we haven't really gotten into here, but we could get into, which is that sometimes Marvel's internal indicia and publishing names don't make sense, and Marvel kind of like waves their hands and says it's all okay in the future. A great version of this is, did Uncanny X-Men really start in 1963? No, it did not. In 1963, X-Men started, and it was X-Men all the way up until Days of Future Past, even though the Uncanny title treatment had already been on it. That's why you see sometimes on the back of books, omnibuses, masterworks, that it says it collects issues of Uncanny X-Men 1981, because that's when the title formally changed in the indicia. However, Marvel themselves loves to ignore that, and if you go on Marvel Unlimited, they call all of Uncanny X-Men all the way back to 1963. There's something similar here happening with New X-Men and X-Men 1991. New X-Men, it absolutely gets new indicia from the first issue in 2001, and it's called New X-Men. But actually, it keeps being called New X-Men a little bit after Grant Morrison leaves, before they remember to change the indicia back to just X-Men, even though the title was saying X-Men. So some places, including on Marvel Unlimited, they will call issues after the Morrison run X-Men 2007. But really, it's just X-Men 2001 or X-Men 1991 resumed. I always use the convention of just calling it all X-Men 1991 once we get after Morrison, because what the hell is X-Men 2007? Nobody knows what that means. So there's a note on true publishing nerd indicia nonsense. Omar, let's go to the next era.
Really quick, what happened in New X-Men 155 to 156? Those are the issues that were written by Chuck Austen, as Peter, I think, explained a little bit earlier.
I think I said that. Yeah,
you did.
Well, Morrison left in kind of a hurry, right? So there was a need to kind of like put a little bow on it.
They knew when Morrison was going to leave. The thing is like, oh, we still need to cash in on the fact Morrison is leaving. Let's go ahead and slide 2 more issues in there under Chuck Austen and call them New X-Men. So it was like a transition period. And then, of course, they gave Chuck Austen New X-Men after that. Or, I'm sorry, Agile as X-Men. And then, Peter Milligan took over, but we'll get there here in a second. Good evening, afternoon to the only 2 creators I follow on Patreon. Oh, thank you so much.
That's amazing.
Thank you all.
I can think of some other good ones, better than me, probably.
No, that's not true at all. Well, at least as far as me, speak for yourself is what I meant to say. The Astonishing Era. This is the era I came back. Those are my thoughts. This is it. This is when I knew I'm home.
I mean, at the time, Joss Whedon, scandal noted, but at the time he was huge. I was in a Tower Records on Broad Street in Philadelphia. I was checking out with my stack of 20 CDs of the week, because this is, I guess right at the beginning of the iPod era. And I looked at the spinner rack of books, and there was a trade collection that said Astonishing X-Men by Joss Whedon. I was like, are you messing with me? So of course I bought it. And this was the one comic I was reading. I think for a lot of people in this period from 2004 to 2008, Astonishing X-Men was the one comic, because there was no bigger name in like sci-fi fantasy geek culture at that time than Joss Whedon, other than maybe J.J. Abrams. So like, yeah, everybody was reading it. It was as big as, and that's why people kind of roll their eyes a little bit at it. Now they're like, it's not that good. Yeah, but that's because this was like, do you ever hear people trash talk Fleetwood Mac Rumors, which is absurd? You can't trash talk Rumors. But Rumors, if you were not alive in the 70s, Rumors was like Jagged Little Pill. It was like Dua Lipa Future Nostalgia. It was like 8 singles deep. Everybody was hearing it constantly. So yeah, you get annoyed in hindsight, but like Astonishing was omnipresent when it was happening.
So for me, I remember when it was announced that Joss Whedon was going to write Astonishing, and I rolled my eyes. I'm like, okay, I love Buffy. I love Angel. I love Firefly, which, of course, was to come. And then, unfortunately, yeah. But anyway. And I think Marvel at the time was testing out, I don't know, like their website. They gave us like the first 4 or 5 pages. And I rolled my eyes when there was a dialogue between Wolverine and Cyclops where he's like, why are we wearing costumes again? We had the leather outfits, and Cyclops is like, we gotta impress people. We gotta astonish them. And I'm like, oh my God,
astonish them.
This is gonna be so lame and cheesy. And then I read that first issue, and it opens with Kitty Pryde going back to issue 168, which is my very first comic book. And it was like, I think I got manly eye sweat reading that issue. because it was just moving, like it was like coming back home. And I know, you know, there are people that don't like it because it's a very, very, very in your face love letter to Claremont, but I thought it did its own thing. And then wonderful moments. What solidified it for me was issue number 6. I got 2 words for you, bub. And that splash page by John Cassaday of
John Cassaday.
That was it.
Whedon's name unfortunately sucks all the air out of the room these days, but Cassaday, he draws every single panel of every single issue of this 24 regular issue plus giant size issue run. At the same time, he was also still drawing issues of Planetary with Warren Ellis, also scandal noted. I mean, John Cassaday, and this was the peak of his powers. And Laura Martin on colors. I mean, it's just, even if you had no idea who Joss Whedon was, you would stare at the pages. But here's the thing, much like New X-Men, Astonishing X-Men sucks all the air out of this era. And you're going to see in just a second that there is a lot left to collect in Omnibus here. You're also going to see this is 4 years in which Whedon, Cassaday, and Martin only managed to squeak out 25 issues. So this title effectively was a quarterly title, right? Because that's, or no, bi-monthly title.
Yeah,
because that's 25 issues and 48 months. So ultimately it wound up, but at the beginning it was coming out monthly, and then it got very slow. So let's see what else is in this Astonishing Era.
That's the beauty of collected editions. You don't have to worry about any of that. You wouldn't know, right? You wouldn't know that Uncanny X-Men had to move on with a certain plot point about a bullet that would spoil the ending of Astonishing X-Men. But you wouldn't have to worry about that because you're getting it in collected editions. So yeah, here we go.
So let's talk what's in and out. We have all of Astonishing X-Men from this period in an omnibus.
Give me a second.
We don't have everything of any other title. We have bits and bobs. So in Uncanny X-Men, we've got a little bit of it from House of M that's in the House of M omnibus. It's by Claremont. We've also got a little bit of it, the Rise and Fall of the Shi'ar Empire, as part of War of Kings. But we don't have anything comprehensive of Uncanny X-Men in this period. For X-Men, 1991, or if you prefer Marvel, 2007, we have 3 issues because they were the 3 decimation issues immediately following House of M. I should have those books in the opposite order there. And then we also have Deadly Genesis, which is part of the run-up to War of Kings. So it's in the prelude to War of Kings. So what you'll notice that our gaps are huge, and they are very flagshipy. We have tons of gaps in Uncanny X-Men, the first part of which is written by Claremont, then later by Brubaker. We'll get into that in a moment. We have tons of gaps in X-Men itself, which is written at the beginning by Chuck Austin and then by Peter Milligan. So this area is ripe for omnibus coverage because we've really got nothing. And I don't know that there's any reason to think that they would collect around those few issues in Decimation or House of M, because as much as they're part of those 2 events, they're also part of long ongoing runs by each of their writers. So really the only fully collected thing that's probably never, ever going to get recollected in a different way here is Astonishing.
And thank you so much for the super chat, KJ Murphy. It is our pleasure. It's a lot of fun. I love talking X-Men and I love talking to Peter. And if I can mix the 2 every week, I would.
Oh my gosh, could you imagine? I used to have a weekly X-Men show. I mean, you remember.
I remember that.
I used to have a weekly X-Men show.
Woo! It broke you so much you took a break from the internet.
I did take a break from the internet. So let's, as a weekly X-Men show, though, if you want weekly X-Men, One Wheelchair X, who's been in the chat throughout this, he kept up a weekly X-Men show on that channel. That's his YouTube channel. All throughout Age of Revelation, he reacted to every issue of Age of Revelation.
Wow, that's impressive.
In this new, and I've been promising him we're going to do a stream together for literally I think 9 months now. So we might just have to have him on Near Mint at this point to hang out because clearly it's the only place that I show up.
Can he met my ex? Maybe we can go back to those days. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, maybe. So here's the visual, and this is when things get insane. You'll notice I had to make the lines thinner because things are so insane here. So let's just try to work down year by year what this period looked like. It's only 5 years, but good Lord. So we have Astonishing X-Men. As we talked about, that defines this whole era. It starts in the first month of this era. It ends in the last month of this era, even though it's only 25 total issues. Starting at the same time as Astonishing X-Men is X-Men by Chuck Austen. As Omar said, he got off of Uncanny. They gave him adjectiveless. They took the adjective of new away. It just went back to being X-Men. So he writes that for a little bit under a year. At the same time, Claremont has just wrapped up Extreme X-Men. So now Claremont, for the second time, gets Uncanny X-Men back. And he writes a run that's called The New Age in Uncanny X-Men. And it's fun because he plays with some toys he hasn't played with before in X-Men. He gets to write Bishop substantially for the first time. And now we have Emma as a bona fide hero because of what's happened in New X-Men and what continues to happen in Astonishing X-Men. So those two runs both start in 2004. They're continuing on into 2005. Then Chuck Austen leaves Adjectiveless X-Men and we get Peter Milligan for a pretty substantial 2-year run on Adjectiveless X-Men. In this period, House of M happens. House of M is almost a perfect act break in the middle of Astonishing X-Men. It actually happens kind of during issue 13. So you see the impact of House of M and the depowering of M-Day happen right in the middle of Astonishing X-Men. It also happens right in the middle of Peter Milligan's run. So that's why I have that first part labeled as pre-decimation, because it hits his run with everybody being depowered in issue 177. Meanwhile, Chris Claremont actually had a House of M tie-ins on his run. He doesn't really address decimation, but he does roll on after House of M and continues writing for almost another year with a really big Rachel Gray story and the really big Psylocke story. All the while, Astonishing X-Men is still happening. Then Claremont leaves Uncanny X-Men and they give it to Ed Brubaker. Ed Brubaker writes a year-long story, which I am obsessed with, but I know opinions differ, called The Rise and Fall of the Shi'ar Empire, which takes Nightcrawler, Xavier, Polaris, Havoc, Rachel Summers, and I want to say Warbird out into space to deal with some Shi'ar nonsense. A good portion of those characters get marooned in space and become a part of the space epic that's happening in Marvel in the late 00s, and they become part of War of Kings. But that's kicked off by Brubaker writing what is a mini-series fourth flagship for a moment, which is Deadly Genesis, which introduces a new character, Vulcan, that gives an extra layer to what Xavier was up to back in the giant-sized X-Men days. So you and also not Warbird Darwin. I thought not Warbird. What's Thunderbird's little brother? Warpath and Darwin. Thank you for that correction.
How dare you confuse Warbird and Stream is over. I'm canceling.
Well, his name is Thunderbird, but then the next one's Warpath.
And then there's an actual character named Warbird.
I know Warbird. It's Carol Danvers, my favorite. Okay, that's fine.
You know, one of the most interesting things that you've said, and I'm going to let him cook, and then I'll interrupt. During that Uncanny X-Men post or House of M story, that's when Alan Davis said, that's enough of this shit. I can't keep drawing this. He was like,
by the way, that Alan Davis artwork in the first half of that is like,
and he left.
So
he was
gorgeous.
done. He's like, I'm not drawing Dinosaur X-Men. This is stupid. This House of M crossover is dumb. I'm out. And then it was, I think it was Billy Tan for a little bit, and then Chris Batchelor.
Bacallo draws that Rachel Gray arc.
He comes in. Oh, End of Grays is awesome.
Oh man, that is depressing.
Dude, it's so rough, man. And
I love
dark when trouble comes into the X-Men. Love it.
That is one of the darkest, Claremont arcs of all time. So the net effect of this is this whole 5 years is astonishing, which is crazy talk. And then the main title is going through all these changes. We come back from Decimation. Milligan is still writing post-Decimation adjectiveless. He writes an arc I really like, Blood of Apocalypse, that brings Apocalypse back after like a decade since we've seen him. Then Mike Carey takes over that adjectiveless title and writes a great arc called Supernovas that fans are obsessed with, and Bacallo joins him in art there. Meanwhile, Brubaker, after he's done the Shi'ar stuff, he leaves a lot of those X-Men parked in space, but he has a brief run where he goes back to Earth and he writes a story focused on Storm called The Extremists that is set in the Morlock tunnels, and that brings us to the end of this era. So as you can see, pretty much all we have comprehensively is astonishing.
Yeah. I mean, you have the X-Men in space, Cosmic X-Men Omnibus. That's a little bit of this era.
Yeah, but it's not like a comprehensive flagship.
No, it's
like,
not.
It doesn't have
It's very hodgepodgey material. Was
Yeah.
Dinosaur Rachel the final straw? Actually, I think it was. Like, he's like, I can't do this. I love you,
Well,
Claremont.
Rachel was Alan Davis's baby.
Yeah, he loved her in Excalibur. But then I think it was just a combination of this like alternate reality House of M story that they were forced to do. Yeah. They should bring back Bird Brain. Bird Brain, that's a character I haven't seen for a long time.
Oh man. Kid Crisis is just rereading Bird Brain right now. I'm like, I can't believe you would read it again. Okay, so now we come to what I am calling the Hope era. Why? Because it starts with Hope's birth and it ends with a slight left turn from what Hope was maybe originally intended to serve a purpose of doing in the X-Men. So this covers from Messiah Complex to Second Coming. A lot of people ask, and there's another really common question I see all the time on the internet. I just got done reading Astonishing. What should I read next? Literally seconds after the resolution of Giant Size X-Men and Giant Size Astonishing X-Men, that same team goes to the opening frames of Messiah Complex. Messiah Complex's #1 issue is the next sequential X-Men story after Astonishing X-Men. Then this period gets wild. There's so much to talk about. I don't even think I could summarize it. Omar, until Krakoa, this was my favorite period of X-Men.
You love this period? I'll tell you what.
This and the one that immediately follows, yeah.
Okay, so I know you and I differ when it comes to Matt Fraction's run. I'm not the biggest fan of his run on X-Men. But I will say this era, man, it kicked off. Like, it was so badass. It was, because what I said about the previous era, like I said, Extreme X-Men were doing their own thing. When somebody asked, how much of it did it cross over? Not a lot. Each writer was kind of given a team, and each writer told their story. It didn't matter what was happening in another title. They were doing their own thing. Chuck Austin's X-Men were fighting werewolves, and then you had Claremont's X-Men going into an arena. Meanwhile, Morrison was bringing the Shi'ar Empire to destroy the X-Mansion. But at this moment, it was when they decided, let's make the X-Men be this expanded family again that people liked in the 80s and in the 90s. Let's make these characters talk to each other. Let's actually make the editors work with each other. And let's kick it off with a crossover. Because you know what? We haven't had an X-Men crossover in a while. House of M brought back the idea that, holy crap, crossovers work. And they move books. They sell. Let's do a crossover just with X-Men. And that's where the whole Messiah Complex idea came from.
And it had been years. We're talking since Apocalypse the 12 was really the last like proper all-in crossover.
Eve of Destruction. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Eve of Destruction was just the flagships. I mean, Messiah Complex was Uncanny and Adjectiveless and X Factor and Academy X, which were kind of like the 4 big books of that period. It had been a decade pretty much since we had done this.
Mm-hmm. So it was huge. Like, we talk about eras here. We're flying through them. Believe it or not, Peter and I are flying through them.
This is much quicker than I thought it was going to be.
We could do a 2-hour stream just on one era of X-Men. But as you're seeing the years, like, there hadn't been a crossover, and it's a big deal for Marvel not to have a crossover, because that's how much like X-Men really weren't selling, and they were doing their own thing, and that's what people liked. But now it's like, okay, let's get these characters to talk to each other and see what happens. Plus, right off the bat with Messiah Complex, you get the return of some classic villains that we hadn't seen for a while.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that was one thing about Morrison's run. Like, after Morrison's run for a while, I'm like, halfway through the omnibus, I'm like, man, I really miss Apocalypse, or I miss Magneto. And then I'm not going to spoil what happens later on in their run, but it was moments like that, like, there
was a feeling that like the past excesses of X-Men had kind of been shelved. We got a little bit of like Mystique in the Milligan run, but it really felt like there was this attitude in the 2000s, maybe as a reflection of the Ultimate Universe, of like, don't like have them fight people in spandex anymore. Basically, is what it often felt like,
because of the movies.
And that's not exclusively. Yeah, but it felt like we had gone away from a lot of the classic X-Men villains and storylines. And I'm not somebody who wants everything to repeat, but I think there's cool new things to do. And here's the one other thing I'll say about this before we get into how it's been mapped, which is poorly. Spoilers. I like this because House of M and Decimation kind of felt like it was being done to the X-Men, and it was. Joe Quesada told them to do it to the X-Men. This is where it kind of, and it kind of just felt sad because it just felt like it was one bad thing after another for the X titles that they didn't really have a lot of agency or control over. Not that they always have to win. It just didn't feel like it was primarily their story. It happened to them. This is where them being on the back foot and them being cornered and them being almost extinct really felt like it was their story and we were going somewhere with it. And I think that's why I respond to this Arizona. I'm fine with sad X-Men. I'm fine with the brutal X-Men. I'm fine with X-Men dying, but I want to feel like it's their story and it's like they've got control and it's going somewhere. And that's what it felt like in this era for me.
Yeah, and don't forget the Messiah Trilogy Omnibus, they changed, they added...
They did. They took our advice.
Yeah. What was it that they added?
They added the extra supporting issues from Second Coming that were originally in the Second Coming Revelations hardcover that supported Second Coming, but that hardcover had some other stuff that we don't need, like X Factor issues, unrelated. So they pulled in just the actual Second Coming branded issues into Trilogy. Let's go to the next slide and talk about it. So from this entire 2 years, which was thick with comics, we have one omnibus. And as you will see in a second, this omnibus is not, it's not a true sequential flagship omnibus. It remains to be seen how the content of this omnibus will affect the way the rest of this is collected. But we're talking about an era where we have no omnibus of Uncanny X-Men, no omnibus of X-Men Legacy, which is what X-Men Adjective List turns into in 2008, and no omnibus of Astonishing X-Men, which continues on under Warren Ellis. So basically there's nothing, not a zippo in omnibus for this era, except for this forthcoming Messiah Trilogy omnibus. So let's go to the next slide and see what that looks like. So what's funny about the Messiah Trilogy Omnibus is it's the alpha and the omega. It's the beginning and the ending. It's the beginning of this brief 2-3 year sprint and the end, because Messiah Trilogy kicks it off and Second Coming wraps it up. And in the middle is the Messiah War story, which is not in the flagship, so it doesn't appear on the slide. But in the middle is all that other stuff. So we have Uncanny X-Men, briefly written by Ed Brubaker for an arc that Matt Fraction is co-writing or co-plotting, but they don't usually credit it Fraction in his collections. Then Fraction takes over, and for the first year, he just kind of like moves the team to San Francisco. At that same time, Mike Carey turns X-Men into X-Men Legacy and starts focusing on Professor Xavier pretty exclusively for about a year before he broadens the focus to include Gambit and Rogue. Also at that same time, after a little bit of a break, Astonishing X-Men gets maintained as the title where we're going to have a big creator that everybody loves come and do a landmark run, and Marvel taps Warren Ellis, coincidentally, since Ellis is, of course, John Caste's collaborator on Planetary. Ellis, unfortunately, is even slower than Joss Whedon, and it becomes very quickly obvious that this book is not going to be a very regular ongoing book. Also, I was around at the time. Fans just didn't like it. I actually liked some of the first arc, but it just was not that popular. Then Fraction pauses for a huge crossover. It is the first time X-Men are having a deep crossover with Avengers directly since Onslaught, although I guess you could also count House of M, and that is the X-Men Dark Avengers Exodus and Utopia. So this is Dark Avengers by Brian Bendis. It's actually a pretty slim direct crossover, but there are some one-shots and other issues that are a part of that as well. That's been in its own oversized hardcover, but never in omnibus. Then we come to the back half of this, where there are a lot of big kind of titled storylines and arcs. So there was Nation X, that had its own oversized hardcover, never an omnibus. Then there was also Necrotia, which has had an oversized hardcover, not an omnibus. And then there also are just some general issues of X-Men Legacy at this point that are also happening. Nothing has been an omnibus. So the question we come to, and I will pose this to Omar, do you think when we start getting omnibuses of the stuff on the right-hand side, that they will recollect Messiah Complex and Second Coming into it the way that they recollect Kings of Pain into every omnibus of every line of characters that have Kings of Pain? What do you think?
You know, the X-Men Collected Editions department, I think, understands the idea that people double dip and not everybody gets everything. So I think they will collect the entirety of Messiah Complex, and then later on, of course, Second Coming. That's something that DC is doing across the board, by the way, not just with selected Batman titles. It's double, triple, quadruple dipping at DC. That's the way the mentality behind the collected editions department is. You know, Marvel in the past has been very hit and miss what they collect. Like if you remember X-Force does not collect the Extinction Agenda, right? Like Extinction Agenda, or I'm sorry, not Extinction, Executioner Song's not collected in the X-Force omnibus. They purposely
Now they would. If they did that again today,
if they did it again, that's how volume 2 would start. This is
Yeah.
just me thinking, you know, I don't speak for them. Again, this video is not sponsored by Marvel Comics. This is just Omar's thoughts. It's just something that I've seen in the past. Like they really do think like, okay, well, let's put everything in here. So
I think Marvel not only realized people will rebuy things, but they also realized that people want a complete story. Like that idea of like, just grab this other oversized hardcover and then grab this other omnibus. That was a very 2010s collecting idea from Marvel that really predated the Epic collections. And I think, honestly, again, I never have any insider knowledge. I really think the ravenous reception of the Epic collections really influenced the way they do everything. They were like, oh, these are comic fans. They actually really just do want it all in one place. They don't care that much about minor double dipping. They're like, don't make me miss something. And I think that approach has bled into how they map omnibuses hugely compared to the way they did it 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that is, I think that's what I've seen happen. So I think it will.
Now that said, I do not think that Legacy would get collected alongside Uncanny. Legacy is its own beast. Like it really, it briefly flirts with Uncanny a little bit
when it becomes Legacy. At first, with the Children of, what is it called? That hardcover, the Supernovas, which is the only
right, but that's before it's Legacy because it's pre-Messiah Complex. Yeah, but like I would not be looking for this all, like everything on the right hand side to all be in one omnibus line. I don't think it would read very well. I think there's a Fraction omnibus line, probably there's a Legacy by Carrie line, and then there's who even knows how the Astonishing would get collected. But they're very three separate paths. They just briefly converge during Utopia. So I guess we can move on. I mean, the answer is if you want this in omnibus, vote on the damn Tiger Eyes poll.
So really quick, I just wanted to get this.
The Extravaganza completely disagrees with me.
They should definitely recollect this era as an anthology Omni, similar to Dawn of X. I mean, that's my mentality when it comes to a lot of these. With like, I think whenever we have another compendium stream, a contender would be something like Spider-Man with all 4 titles in it. Just like I think X-Men should be just retitled The Mutants and collect everything: New Mutants, Excalibur, X-Force. And
could you imagine? I mean, they could sell that endlessly, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, but I'm a madman. I want everything. I'm a greedy madman. The Hope era second coming to AVX.
Here's where things
I love Second Coming. I love Necrosha. Like, I thought the Second Coming payoff was excellent. Everything after Second Coming, oh man, it's tough to read.
It's tough.
I'm not a fan of AVX. I think it's pretty. I think it's got beautiful artwork at times. I think it's stupid fun. Like,
oh, you could just end it sense it's stupid.
Oh, it's ridiculously stupid. It makes no sense. It immediately, like within the omnibus, it retcons the idea of what the Phoenix can do. Wait, can it teleport or not? What's going on? Why are we like, what are the we doing here, guys? Is anybody talking to each other? Like,
I just remember reading it and just being like, none of this is right. Like, Phoenix is one of my favorite concepts in X-Men.
Saving grace is. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say, I have reread the Alan Davis Phoenix stuff when he comes back to Excalibur and they fight Necrom so many times that to me that's the Phoenix lore, and they really hadn't done a whole lot with Phoenix lore other than Greg Pak on X-Men War Song and End Song. So when we got here and they were like rewriting Phoenix lore live, I was like, what? Yeah, I was in like fan rage. I've come to peace with it over time, but I hate that it kind of moved away from what Alan Davis, I think, very elegantly did with the Phoenix Force. But well, you were going to say one thing, one grace note. What were you saying?
The saving grace of this era is the Kieran Gillen run.
Yes, my favorite run of X-Men. The full stop. Period. Seriously? Exclamation point.
No, that's not how you spell Claremont. What are you doing here?
Kieran Gillen is my boy, And I will always, I at the time, I just couldn't believe it. It's like, as much as I love that Utopia era and I enjoyed Fraction, I love Second Coming, every new issue that I read of Gillen, I was like, I can't believe it. Like, it had this magical feeling to me that X-Men had back in the like 170s and 180s and 190s of Claremont with John Romita Jr. But it had that feeling, and it was modern. It had that feeling, and it was like this whole expanse of like every mutant in the world is an X-Men, but also Cyclops has an extinction team, because you know what? Fuck you, world. We're gonna come back and like put your backs to the wall. I just thought it was so brilliant, and Gillen does so well with these themes of like nuclear powered human beings as weapons. If you haven't been reading his Power Fantasy, it's one of the best X-Men stories ever told, and it's an indie book. Absolutely run to go pick it up from Image. So let's get into what this era includes, Omar.
Let me get this really quick. I love collecting the Krakoa era. But is that era of Omnis pausing them from releasing other eras being collected? Well,
that's a good question.
Not really, because we're getting the Gillen Omnibus from this era that we just said. I think
Gillen before Fraction. Crazy work.
Well, 2 Gillens before Fraction. So I think why we're seeing more X-Men Omnis is because of Krakoa. So when people are like, oh my God, are you done announcing X-Men Omnis? No. I think Krakoa really added a lot more to the lineup. If anything, it might take away, from, I don't know, something random they would have done, like Marvel 1966. I don't know. I don't want to bring that into the world, but yeah. Let's move on to the next slide, though, and talk about this collection here. Let me get this. So the Second Coming. Take it away, Peter.
All right, so we're coming out of Second Coming here. What briefly after Second Coming, there's an arc called The Five Lights and then an arc called Quarantine in Uncanny X-Men. That's written by Fraction. It's not omnibus. It'll be in an eventual Fraction omnibus. Although I will say this every time we talk about it, it was co-plotted by Gillen, and it would have made sense in the Gillen omnibus, but that ship has sailed. What we do have in omnibus from this period is the Gillen stuff. We have Wolverine and the X-Men by Jason Aaron, which happens after Schism, and we have the AVX omnibus. That leaves a ton of gaps, weirdly, including Schism, which has been an omnibus in the Jason Aaron Wolverine omnibus line, but it's not in the Gillen omnibus when it happens during Gillen, but it's not in it because it's by Aaron. But that means you need to buy a Wolverine omnibus all about Wolverine to understand Schism and why the X-Men suddenly break up and splinter into 2. It makes no sense. But other than these 3 books that I've pictured on the slide, there's nothing from this era. So it kind of gives the illusion of a lot of things being collected, because that AVX omnibus is massive. It's one of the biggest of all time, and it has a good amount of issues in it. Is it the biggest?
It's the biggest, legit.
It's the biggest. But actually, we're missing tons of material, because there were not 1, not 2, but actually 4 ongoing flagship X-Men titles in this period. Uncanny X-Men, Astonishing X-Men, X-Men Legacy, which at this point is not just about Rogue anymore. She's got a whole team. It's Rogue, Gambit, Professor X, Magneto, Legion,
it's so good too.
Frenzy. It's one of my I mean, if Gillen is my favorite X-Men run, that Mike Carey run at this point is like right one step behind it, neck and neck with Claremont. Then we have X-Men 2010, which was initially launched as sort of X-Men team up, X-Men play with other people in the Marvel universe. And so that was another ongoing title as well.
That's the X-Ladies, right? It's just the women?
No, you're thinking about 2013. This is Curse of the Mutants, Victor Gischler.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah. The Dracula versus the X-Men era. Jubilee.
I cannot emphasize this enough. That's how Prelude to Schism makes no sense.
Yeah,
it is. They just handed, what's his name? I'm always bored by him. Paul Jenkins. They handed Paul Jenkins 4 issues and was like, write about how the X-Men are scared. It has nothing to do with Schism. It doesn't connect with anything. They're all like in a room being like, something's coming. If the thing that's coming is as dark as what I think is coming, the thing will come for us, and then we'll be came for, and then everyone will have come. Like, that's all there is. There's no story. It's just ugh.
You weren't a fan of Inhumans? Surprised that his Inhumans is solid.
Yeah, that was the last time he was interesting. So let's go to how this maps, shall we?
Absolutely. Let me
all right, Omar.
Wow.
So, yeah. Yikes. So here's what happens. In 2010, we come out of Second Coming and we don't have any omnibuses. Then 10 issues later, which is faster than 10 months because they're shipping quickly, we get to Gillen on Uncanny. But before we get there, Or actually, while we're there, Gillen writes Uncanny for about almost a year before we get to Schism. And there's a lot of stuff in there that's not collected. So there was an Uncanny X-Men annual in there that's not in the Gillen books. He didn't write it. It'll probably be collected with his Hope material whenever that gets collected. There's Astonishing X-Men here that is written by a combination of Daniel Way and Christos Gage. There's X-Men Legacy continuing by Mike Carey, and it's amazing. And then there's also the launch of this new adjectiveless X-Men that's kind of X-Men team up, because it has Spider-Man, it has Doctor Doom, it has Blade, it has vampires, it has War Machine. It's all over the Marvel universe. Then in the middle of this Kieran Gillen omnibus, truly in the middle, almost at the exact halfway point, comes Schism, where Cyclops and Wolverine have a lover's quarrel and they don't manage to fuck it out on the beach. And so they fight it out instead. And now the X-Men have to be broken into two. Schism itself, dumb as a box of rocks. However, what came from Schism, Regenesis, was truly awesome because the line really felt distinct. It really felt like one of those times that every book was doing something very, very specific, and none of those specific things have been in omnibus other than the Gillen stuff. So Astonishing X-Men, Greg Pak writes an amazing arc that then spins off into his Extreme X-Men, not a flagship book. It's just called X-Men, but really it's a Dazzler solo series. Then we have X-Men Legacy continuing, now written by Christos Gage, as they become the teachers at the Wolverine and the X-Men school. Then we have Gischler wrapping up his vampire stuff before handing off his book to Brian Wood. Meanwhile, Greg Pak hands off Astonishing to a pretty good run by Marjorie Liu. All of that is happening after Schism, but before AVX, which is crazy work because we're talking about the span of just a few months here. X-Men books were shipping so fast. So Schism, which splits that Gillen omnibus, is actually what kicks off Wolverine and the X-Men. So I could have put that one in the middle, but I really wanted to show you that Wolverine and the X-Men is like happening this entire time. So that's why I showed it that way. Then finally, we come to Avengers versus X-Men, and that has a lot of tie-ins from all of the books except for Astonishing and for Adjectiveless. Neither of them actually tied in, although fun fact, Adjectiveless kind of has two issues that kind of tie in, but they weren't officially banner tie-ins, so they're not in that omnibus. And then there's this little extra blip at the end of books wrapping up after Avengers versus X-Men, but before Marvel Now. So Astonishing X-Men does it, Legacy does it, and Adjectiveless X-Men does it. And then we've reached Marvel Now. So much like many of the other 2000s eras that we've looked at, there is a lot left to omnibus here. Omar, what do you have to say?
I like Christos Gage taking over X-Men Legacy. I really like that run with Rogue. I thought it was good. Schism, that's for people that are wondering, that's also collected in the Wolverine Goes to Hell omnibus, I believe.
Yes, it's in the Jason Aaron Wolverine omnibus line.
In case you don't want to hunt down the oversized hardcover, because there is an oversized hardcover of it. Yeah, and it's ridiculously stupid, and
it's so stupid.
It's 5 issues, which could have been done in a page, but you know,
it made me hate Aaron for like a good long while. It took me a while to trust Aaron again.
I've never been a fan of Aaron's Wolverine. I've never been a fan, but I love.
I like Aaron Wolverine. But, yeah.
I love Wolverine and the X-Men though, which is just really weird.
Hate. It's one of my least favorite X-Men series of all time.
Wow, the opinions.
This is where Omar, after years of Omar and I like agreeing on everything, you will find that this next couple of slides is where we disagree on everything.
Yes, the Christos Gage fan club. I don't know how that dude is not as popular as someone like Mad Fraction.
He should be like
Jeremy Adams.
Yeah, he should be Fraction level. He should be like McKay level. He's that good.
Yeah. Oh, Warren. I liked Aaron's story. You hated it. That makes sense because you love this era that we're talking about now. X-Men and Marvel Now.
What's wild is we went from having 0 omnibuses of this to like just about being done over the course of a year, which is crazy.
I will say there's a lot of boob window in this era.
I mean, couldn't Cyclops have one? Did they lose the pair of scissors after making the other 2 costumes?
I actually really like, as campy as hell as that Cyclops outfit is, that is really badass. I like that outfit.
It might be his best outfit, honestly. I mean, I know we all have nostalgia for the green one, but that outfit goes hard.
That I really like the design. This era is also, you know, what put Magic and
on the map.
Yeah, like it made her part of the A-team. Now she was an X-Men. Something that people have been, you know, keep in mind.
Gillen started that. Gillen began that trend.
Yeah,
and he stole it from the mutants.
people didn't notice until this costume.
Yes, true.
This costume is the one that are like, wow, who is this chick? She ain't got no eyeballs. She's mysterious. She's hot. So, you know, there is a lot to say about this era. I'm not a fan of this era. I definitely recommend it to people, though, because a lot of my friends love this era of X-Men. A lot of my friends started reading X-Men because of this era. There are moments that I do like. It's not everything. It's not, you know, I'm never one of these that's across the board. Everything was awful. I think there are some good moments in here. But this is truly the Bendis era. This is when Bendis left Avengers, which he made into a flagship title, outselling X-Men. And then they were like, okay, that's enough Avengers. Bendis, you want to write something else? And he was like, yeah, I heard Omar likes the X-Men. Give me that title. And we got Bendis on X-Men. My gods, you maniacs are exposing all of the minute.
Minute, probably.
The total of them secrets be unleashed. Thank you so much, Wacky. I hope that is you on that avatar picture. Thank you for the super.
That's what my hair looked like about halfway through making these.
Oh yeah, you have no idea the amount of trouble and time that Peter goes through. Yeah, I'm not a fan of this era, but again, I don't speak for the X-Men community.
It sounds like you're a fan because you like Bendis. You like Bendis X-Men just fine. Jess loves it.
Oh, I know he does. But
Jess and Freddie love this.
Jess is really right. Freddie is wrong about a lot of things. Does Max like it?
I don't know if Max likes it. I'll have to ask Max. I think he probably would say
Matthew Malloy can go to hell. God, I hated that story. I had to reread it for that omnibus, and I'm like, oh yeah. Oh,
you can never. This is why I've gotten dozens, maybe at this point over 100 messages about why does my X-Men reading order stop at the end of 2012, and I'll tell you why. Exclusive, although it doesn't have to be exclusive. I'll tell anybody this. I cannot bring myself to reread Bendis X-Men. I mean, every time I get past the second arc, I'm like, I cannot do this again.
I thought you liked it.
No, there's nothing redeeming in this period for me. We're about to see the next slide, and I truly do not wish to reread any of it.
I had to do an overview of the Omnis, and it hurt. Like,
and that's why you've got the hard job, and you get paid
it had moments, but oh my god, some of those moments. Here's
what I'll say, though. Here's what I'll say. Bendis does his magic trick where he writes two books that duet with each other without directly crossing over, but they read better if you're reading both. And Bendis does that thing, and honestly, I think Bendis is similar to J.J. Abrams in this way. If you're a big fan of Alias, which I'm a huge fan of J.J. Abrams' Alias, and not of Lost for similar reasons. Every episode, every issue kind of flows into the next. You kind of never know where you are. Like something happens and a little bit of story happens and then we tease something else and then some people eat some bagels and then we're in the next issue and it kind of just keeps rolling. So Bendis is fun to binge because it's always like you want to go to bed, your eyes are tired, but you're like, but I have to read one more. We didn't get to the end of a story, because that's the way that Bendis' style was in this period. So if you like that, if you love a binge read, if you love books that duet with each other, if you don't want arcs, but you kind of just want to feel like the series is just one big rolling arc, the way that often his New Avengers felt, that's what this is.
Yeah, it's got pretty artwork.
I don't think so. Okay, let's continue.
Okay, let's do it.
I told you we disagree about everything. So look, we're just about done. We're just about over. There's like a tiny little pinch, a little sprinkling of salt of issues that we don't have in this yet, because we have Wolverine and the X-Men by Aaron, which continues into Marvel now. We have these two Bendis omnibuses, which is everything from the main two books, All New X-Men and Uncanny X-Men, and secretly tucked away in that Guggenheim omnibus that mostly is ResurrXion material, actually is also an arc of Adjectiveless X-Men 2013. And Marvel made a great call and put all of Battle of the Atoms crossover in the Uncanny X-Men omnibus, which means there's even a few more issues of X-Men 2013 in there. So what's left over? Really not that much. We have a little bit of X-Men 2013 that hasn't been collected. Well, let's actually, for a change, start on the right side. Okay. So X-Men Adjectiveless starts about 6 months into Marvel now, and it's a third flagship title after Uncanny X-Men and after All New X-Men. It's initially written by Brian. What? That's the ladies. It could have been called X-Women because it's an all-women cast. And Brian Wood writes it, and it starts with Olivier Coipel art in the first arc, which is incredible.
So good. I love that guy's art.
The writing, not so much. But it lasts for 17 issues, and it's broken in the middle there because that's the battle.
Domino, though, on an X-Men title. That was nice.
Well, Domino you're thinking about the Brian Wood stuff that comes at the end of the 2010 run is when Domino's in it.
I thought she showed up in the first arc in the first 4 issues. Well, maybe I'm wrong.
No,
Okay.
I don't think so. But yeah, it's like her versus Storm. That I love that Brian Wood stuff before Marvel. No, yeah. So then Wolverine and the X-Men ends, and Jason Aaron goes off to do other things. But it was such a popular title that they spin it off into another one written by Jason Latour. And that goes for a year. So that's never been collected in oversized format. Then also, one of the places Aaron leaves to is to write Nightcrawler's story and where he's been all this time in It's Amazing X-Men. Aaron only lasts about an arc. He hands it off to a variety of other writers. That also continues for almost 2 years. That has never been oversized. And then finally, after that little pinch of Guggenheim material in Adjectiveless X-Men, then there's one final arc, which I want to say is written by G. Willow Wilson. But if you look at that, altogether, everything that hasn't been collected is barely an omnibus. So we're not here to map, but I'm saying we're 1, maybe 2 omnibuses away from total flagship coverage of this period.
I'm surprised Amazing X-Men, the Jason Aaron stuff was not added to the... I don't know. You couldn't really put it in the Wolverine and the X-Men omnibus.
Well, you could, like, the whole cast goes and does that. All of the teachers are like, let's go find our friend. But here's the thing. They put out that omnibus so fast once the series was over that the omnibus came out while Amazing X-Men was still happening. So that's why Amazing X-Men isn't in it. It was like they released that like months after the series wrapped up.
This is the era. It started with the last era we looked at, the era where Jubilee has a baby and she is a vampire.
She finds a baby.
I actually love Lost and I like the ending, but I'm not here to argue with Peter about Lost. I'm here to argue with Peter about the things that matter, which is X-Men.
So Jubilee became a vampire in the last era, and she finds the baby at the beginning of this era.
And somebody was asking about, hold on a second, where is it? It was a really good, this is very important. No, X-Men 2013 is not a true continuation of X-Men Legacy. X-Men Legacy goes back to the name X-Men, and then the line is canceled. That was the Christos Gage stuff. That was AVX, and then the Rogue story.
The reason you may be mistaken for thinking that way is that Bendis has no interest in Rogue. So Rogue does not appear, I don't think, a single time in any of Bendis's X-Men in this period. But Rogue, of course,
Rogue he had what's her name, Tempo, or
right. Somebody else with a streak in their hair.
Yeah.
So Rogue is a hot property. Writers love her. Brian Wood was immediately like, wait, I can have Rogue. And so Rogue becomes one of the anchor heroes of that 2013 run. So in a way, it kind of feels like that 2013 picks up from Legacy because that's where Rogue goes. But it's not like an extension of Legacy.
So many X titles during this time. At one point, there were 6 Wolverine titles a month. Wolverine was gorgeous. He's not, including the miniseries. Yeah, seriously. I remember at one time there were 5 Wolverine Omni series. Bendis loves Kitty, so she was like one of the main characters, not only in this but also in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Kitty was starring in like multiple books during this era. Like she was Bendis. One thing Whedon and Bendis will do is they will make Kitty Pryde the main character of X-Men.
She's great. She's great though. Extermination would be in the Matthew Rosenberg.
Not quite there. We're almost there.
We're almost there though.
So that's Marvel now, really. I'll say this, if you just got those omnibuses on the right, Wolverine and the X-Men, All New X-Men and Uncanny X-Men, not even the Guggenheim omnibus, you'd have a complete story. You're not really missing anything. There's maybe like 2 developments that you'd be missing from the right-hand side. Jubilee adopting her baby and Nightcrawler coming back from the dead. That would really be the only 2 big X-Men plot points you would miss.
Oh, ironically, my buddy Project Viking is watching Fringe, J.J. Abrams, with his mom.
Fringe is very cool. See, I like a lot of J.J. Abrams.
I like that. I like that show too. Yeah. Okay, ready for the next era?
Well, this is going to be real easy, Omar, because spoilers, none of it's collected in omnibus.
No. Okay. An oversized hardcover, yes, though, because we have the Apocalypse story, the IVX is collected in. I think that's it, right?
That's it. But before we get into how it's collected, how does it make you feel?
Oh, I hate this era.
I hate it.
I think I am. Yeah, I don't ever get to talk about it because there's nothing from this era that needs to be collected. I think the only things I liked were the Cullen Bunn Magneto story. Oh man, I did not like this era, dude. This is the Lemire
Lemire opens it up with an interview where he's like, I'm known for being bad at writing team books. And he doesn't even say, but this one will be different. He just like said that straight up. And then he wrote another bad team book. I told you.
How much do you hate this era? Because when I see people complain about From the Ashes, when I see people complain about,
there's no comic book in the market right now as bad as From the Ashes.
You think From the Ashes is worse than this?
I think From the Ashes is worse than the worst. I think From the Ashes is worse than the worst book published by DC Comics right now. Whatever the worst DC book is, From the Ashes is not even that good. Whatever the worst book published by IDW is right now, From the Ashes is worse than that worst book. It's not what this is about. Here's what I'll say.
Okay.
Positive.
I think this is worse than From the Ashes, but go on.
I had to sit and really think about this. Here's what's positive. I do like everything Cullen Bunn does here. I think Cullen Bunn, it's funny. He's not like, he clearly loves X-Men. He knows the lore. He knows it. He's not like obsessed with regurgitating existing X-Men. Cullen Bunn is like very happy to break things. And I like that in an X-Men writer when it's done like with respect for the characters. And you can tell he knows his stuff. He just is not going to do the plot we've seen already. This Uncanny X-Men run that's not collected in Omnibus here by Cullen Bunn, it's an extension of his 2014 Magneto series, which is amazing.
Great.
It basically has Magneto leading the Uncanny X-Men, and they're bad guys. This is not just Cyclops' extinction team. This is look who's in this picture, drawn by Greg Land. It's Magneto, Psylocke, kind of morally gray, Mystique, Monet, kind of morally gray because she's also Penance. Just below this picture, Sabretooth. They have Archangel, who's like brainwashed and just being used as a weapon. Like we're the bad guys, X-Men. I enjoy that. Lemire, I think it's a disaster, but as Odefell would tell me to point out to you, it's probably the best thought of as just a Magic solo run. Like Magic is the lead character for 20 issues, and that's cool. It's the most focus she's ever had, really. So if you love Magic, you probably will like the Lemire run. It just doesn't really do anything for anybody other than Magic.
What was the other run? The Hopeless, right? The all new.
Yeah, but that's not even a flagship at this point, because you get the sense that Marvel just does not know what to do with the teen X-Men anymore, but it's still selling. So they're like, just keep them over there. So it kind of, maybe I should have included it, but it just feels like it's so far off to the side in this period. I don't know. I maybe cheated by not including it as a flagship, but it didn't feel like one.
All right, we finally agree.
It's not Omnibus either. So there.
Do not recommend Era of X-Men as your first entry point. But if
not as the first
entry point, that's awesome, because you just go up from here. Man, with all these X-Men stories, how is Disney not making an X-Men 10-season TV show of an hour-long episodes? It could be better than Game of Thrones, or at least the New Mutants. How do we not have New Mutants? Gosh, I spent $200 on Bendis' X-Men Omnis, and sure, Crisis, you were proven right. Thank you both for what you have done. Crisis for 10 to 15 years, bless. Thank you so much for that.
That is so kind. I don't love being right, but it just keeps happening.
Oh, God, I hope just one bad omnibus, but in reality, probably two omnis to do all of IVX. Oh, and IVX was so. Oh, I don't want to spoil what happens, and I always tell people to read things for themselves too, right? My opinion.
I agree.
It's not. It's not like it. My opinion should not affect the way you feel about a book, and just remember that. Nor should anybody on YouTube's opinion affect how you feel about a book. If you love this era, fucking A, more power to you. But
I never want to tell anybody to avoid a book. I want to tell people, I always am trying to people to either hype them up for a book that I love, or to tell them how to temper their expectations. Because what I don't want is to send somebody into a book, whether I said I loved it or I hated it, where they're so sure they're going to like it, and then they're disappointed. That's the worst feeling. And you can hit reload. I put all new X-Men in there, you bully. That's what I want to do. So like, I never want to hype you up so much for something I love, and then you're like, Crisis, you never told me that the art was bad, or Crisis, you never told me it was kind of slow. And I don't want to tell you that I hate something and you being like, it was fine. I always want to have some shades. So here you go. Nothing's been collected in Oversized. Next slide.
Well, Oversized, yes. Some of it.
Well, IVX itself.
Yeah, not Omni. It's awful.
Yeah.
Oh my god, Death of X. Oh my god, I hate it rereading that.
Yeah.
Stupid story.
So I mean, we could get into mapping. You could vote for these on the Tiger Eyes poll. There's a lot of different ways it could be done, but
it's X-Men.
There's nothing to buy.
When I get it, right? It's X-Men.
I will not buy this.
I will ship it to Peter. You heard it?
No.
Here. I will ship it.
I'll tell Customs to burn it.
Wow. This is just as bad as drowning a book in freaking root beer. Okay.
One time I tried to buy some kind of it was like an incense or something. It was dried flower petals or something. And there's really serious biosecurity in New Zealand. And I got this letter that was like, your package of, and then fill in the blank, somebody handwrite flower petals has been incinerated.
This is also, I think another reason why X-Men fans felt really, really bad about this era. This is the era when they were trying to replace X-Men with the Inhumans, and a lot of it has to do with rumors that at the time Fox owned the property, the X-Men movie. So Marvel was like, okay, well, screw you guys. We're gonna make we got X-Men at home. We just happen to call them Inhumans. And there were so many Inhuman titles, and IVX happened.
Some of them were good. I enjoy a lot of the Inhumans.
Actually,
stuff.
the Royals, excellent.
James Asmus,
yeah, really good stuff. But it's in the it's the Inhumans.
There was this feeling
it was never going to sell as much as X-Men.
No, they tried. I mean, it's a shame that they immediately cut it off on the knees afterwards, because I think there was legs, and now we've got nothing. But there was this feeling in this era of X-Men and the next. We might as well go to the next slide at this point, because there's no omnibuses to talk about. Is that X-Men was told don't do anything too exciting. It was almost like don't do anything Fox might want to adapt into a movie. Stick with storylines that are really similar to storylines that already exist. There was this feeling of let's do more of the same. And it's funny that they called this next period after IVX X-Men ResurrXion, spelled like that, because or maybe it's two S's, I never remember. But it's funny that it's called ResurrXion, because it really kind of feels like it's just resurrecting a lot of familiar plots. There's some good stuff in here that I like, and we're kind of stretching this to go past Fresh Start and get all the way to Krakoa, so we can get to Krakoa. I like some of the Matthew Rosenberg stuff. I like the Tom Taylor stuff. He had already been writing All New Wolverine and that past era. Now he writes X-Men Red. I do enjoy X-Men Red. There's some good stuff, and some of Colin Blunn's X-Men Blue is a lot of fun. But I don't know about anybody starting here. It feels like a very kind of dishwater version of the X-Men that you love.
Yeah, I think they knew that eventually something big was going to happen. They weren't told by editorial that everything was going to get wiped away, because we had Astonishing during this time. We had the weird X-Force titles. X Factor was still kicking though. Man, I love this era of X Factor. I love all of Peter David's X Factor. And then you and I differ. I don't think X-Men Gold is as bad as you hate it.
Oh.
I don't think it was that bad. I think it had some. Oh. That should be the blurb for the back of the book. I actually dig some of it, and I liked X-Men Blue. I hope they make an omnibus of Buncanny 1 and 2 and put X-Men Blue in the second one. Marvel.
Yeah, I think the Bun run is going to get a lot of love when it gets recollected. I do.
Hold on a second. Marvel vs. Capcom. I didn't play this one. Infinite is the biggest evidence they were shafting the X-Men in that era. How can you have Marvel vs. Capcom with no? Didn't Wolverine?
Right, it's synonymous with Marvel vs. Capcom is Cyclops, Psylocke. It's.
Oh yeah, Wolverine. Let's go, bub. Come on, they had the same voice actor. The Omni better be called Buncanny X-Men. It better be.
Tom King Wonder Woman has perhaps my favorite modern Wonder Woman artist drawing, Daniel Sempere. And
my gosh, that artist's awesome.
I've been saying for years that he should be the artist on Wonder Woman, and that monkey's paw curled tight around my throat. So even if I am not down with King's script, and I fully will skip every single narration box, but I'll still read the dialogue. I do think it's one of the most beautiful Wonder Woman titles ever. So there is that, which I cannot say From the Ashes. And there's another one in here that I wanted to get. Hold on. Oh, Age of X-Men, still one of the best events. We're going to talk about that in a second. All right. So let's get into what does ResurrXion include and what was a flagship. So this is kind of kooky. They kept calling everything X-Men. So this was like one of these periods where you get a flagship and you get a flagship. Everybody gets a flagship. So it started out with X-Men Gold, which was like the A-team of X-Men led by Kitty Pryde with Old Man Logan and a few other characters. And then there was X-Men Blue, which was really more all new X-Men, but led very specifically by Magneto. And by Cullen Bunn. So it was very like Magneto Buncanny extended, right? But then they throw in a new run of Astonishing X-Men, a 12-month, 12-issue prestige run of it, written by Charles Soule, who at this point is pretty big.
They brought back an important character in that, and then it gets kind of wiped away because of House of X.
Well, not entirely wiped away, because could Hickman have done Krakoa if Charles Soule did not write those first 12 issues of Astonishing? It really feels like a perfect tee-up for Krakoa. It's like, you could almost call it the like road to Krakoa. It really sets it up.
Wow. Look at you.
Well, think about, we don't want to spoil, but think about who comes back.
I don't think Hickman, I don't think Hickman even knew. I thought he was.
No, Hickman would have done what he was going to do no matter what.
Okay.
Okay. But wait, we're not done. Because then there's also X-Men Red by Tom Taylor, which is a team for Jean Grey, because Jean Grey comes back in Phoenix Resurrection, The Return of Jean Grey, which is effectively a flagship because it's pretty damn important. Then, wait, we're not done. Then there's Extermination, which at least has an X in the title, but it's not a flagship, but it kind of is because it puts all new X-Men kind of back up on the shelf, very rudely, not offered to Cullen Bunn, maybe passed on, I don't know. It's written by Ed Brisson, but it's actually pretty fun, and it launches some Ed Brisson X-Men that they squeeze in before Krakoa. Then Matthew Rosenberg has this whole sequence of books that he writes. We'll look more closely at this on the next slide, where it terminates with him taking over Uncanny X-Men after a writer go-round that includes both him and Kelly Thompson for 10 issues that's called X-Men Disassembled, that leads into this huge event that wasn't very well received, but has its pluses, called Age of X-Man, which has not been collected in oversized format. So the only three things we have from this whole 2 years that are in oversized is we have all of X-Men Gold, except for one annual in the Guggenheim Omnibus, because Marvel are assholes sometimes, and they wouldn't put one annual, not by Guggenheim, in that book, so it's not the complete run of X-Men Gold. Marvel, what are you doing to me? Then we have the X-Men Disassembled in its own oversized hardcover, and then we have the Jean Grey stuff, which is in Phoenix: The Death and Rebirth of Jean Grey Omnibus, aka Phoenix Omnibus Volume 3.
I really fought for X-Men Red to be added in that Omni, because I even went with the look, even X-Men purists will buy. Like, even people that only get X-Men titles or Tom Taylor fans will buy this omnibus because of that run.
Yeah.
But they
have other plans.
But that's okay.
But looking at that stuff on the right, it's so hard to imagine how it's going to get collected. Like, clearly that first square, X-Men Blue and Extermination, that's a book. Like, that's easy. And it's all by Cullen Bunn, except for the end. That gold annual, who knows where they'll put it, or it'll just get abandoned. Key, because it establishes that Kitty Pryde is bisexual. Then we have that Astonishing run, which again,
Chris Claremont did that a long time.
Well, Chris Claremont implied it for several decades.
Couldn't do it. Editors wouldn't let him. You know that.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
Then we have X-Men Red and Annual 1 by Tom Taylor. And then we have like the saga of Matthew Rosenberg, which starts in New Mutants Dead Souls, which I loved. And then it goes into
that was so good. Multiple Man was so good too.
Yeah. And then it goes into an arc of Astonishing X-Men that was pretty cool and like vicious. And then it goes into his much debated run on Uncanny X-Men, where it's clear he had some foreknowledge that he could kill as many people as he wanted to, because Krakoa.
It made no sense.
And so he did.
Like, okay. Okay. And he did some of them in such a stupid way that there's no way that would have happened. Not for that character. Yeah. But then, there were some really good things in there. And wow. I like this era is very hit and miss. I like some of it. I like how different it was. Yeah, I like how different it was.
Yeah, I think, again, this is one that's going to gain appreciation when it gets collected 10 years after the fact. People are going to love Blue, and they're going to pretend they like Blue all along. And people are going to be like, they're going to say that exact thing. They're going to say the Rosenberg era felt like scary in a way that X-Men hasn't felt for a long time. And they're going to be right. At the time, it was really upsetting. It was very upsetting at the time, because it just felt like we had gotten all these toys back. We had Cyclops back. We had Professor Xavier back. And then it started like killing a bunch of other toys. But then there's Age of X-Man. And it was pretty much like anniversary of sorts of Age of Apocalypse, but asking, instead of having a warlike pocket universe that was all about apocalypse, what if we had a overly peaceful, a dangerously peaceful pro-mutant pocket universe that's all about Nate Gray and his weird incestual obsession with his mom. And so he says, not only is everything going to be peaceful, but no mutants can ever have sex ever again. Sex is evil because I'm too attracted to my mother. And so that's truly what the event about. I wish I was joking. Robert Secundus in one wheel threat.
I never thought about it like that.
It's true. That's what it was about. You read it.
Like, how did you make a bad story worse? What's wrong with you?
Oh, man.
Okay, so I will say the thing that they did keep from this era into the Krakoa era is the replacement of Young Cable and Old Cable. Young Cable replaces Old Cable.
I thought I hated Team Cable, who I affectionately call Table, but I love Table. I'm all about Table.
And Cable by Jerry Dugan was excellent. Yeah, that's that's what Age of X-Men is about, and that's why it rules. But I mean, they had kind of hinted all of that in the X-Men like ongoing series.
It had some great art, Age of X-Men, and some of the titles were cool. It had Leah Williams' Extremists, which is like it was just such a personal book. It was like, what if there's like mutant hunters that are human hunters that are mutants, bad people, and what if they feel really kind of not great about it? And what if we get to see characters like Blob just be like a real character that has real motivations? That was probably the highlight of Age of X-Men for me. Look, it's not a flagship. This is not a mapping show, because I get dangerous when we get into mapping. But it would probably be in whatever odds and ends book had all that stuff on the right, honestly. Tony 1505.
Oh my gosh, we've only gone 2.5 hours.
I'm telling you, it's not gonna be the longest stream ever. We're gonna wrap it up in a tidy amount of time, except next is Krakoa.
The video that some guy just joined the stream, like, oh my god, they're gonna talk about Krakoa, and he had to wait 2.5 hours to get to it. Sorry. We love talking X-Men. So this is the X-Men, the Age of Krakoa, Part 1, the Hickman era. I 100% love this. Like, love this era. I think it's a great jumping on point. I'm not going to go into spoilers. I do love the retcon that happened with a character in here. It makes perfect sense. Like, to me, it always made perfect sense. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, from reading it, I was like, whoa. That issue blew me away so much. Man, it's so good. There's some great character moments and growth too. Like, not just, you know, the characters that didn't take a lot of the spotlight. Like, you have the 5 characters. Who would have thought Gold Balls would become one of the most important characters?
Just the idea, the idea of mutant circuits, and that mutants are more than people who are alone, and that evolution is bending in the direction of knowing that other genes are out there, almost like that there's an intelligence to evolution, and it's not, and that mutants aren't created in a vacuum, and that the mutants can come together and be more powerful. And then to illustrate that by kind of giving mutants the gift of eternal life, sort of, kind of, without spoiling it in detail, through one of these mutant circuits. I mean, the ideas that Hickman brings to the beginning of this run and lays out like a map in House of X and Powers of X, nobody's had ideas this cool for X-Men ever. As somebody as somebody who is a scholar of all this stuff and can tell you the order that all the issues are in, when you read House of X, Powers of X, it makes so much sense. And I have the alternate cover because I love this Mark Brooks cover.
Mark Brooks
cover. It makes so much sense. Every single thing that Hickman changes makes perfect sense and continuity. There's one point that Forge has the wrong costume on, but if you love X-Men and you're like afraid that something got ruined, this makes X-Men better. I've completely reread all of Chris Claremont since this happened. Every Claremont issue gets better for knowing what Hickman installs via this. That's my opinion.
There are moments in here that there are great Jean moments. There's great Wolverine moments. There's great Nightcrawler moments. If you're not a Cyclops fan, there's an amazing moment within the first 2 issues where he's confronted by the Fantastic Four, and like Sue Richards is like, what are you all doing? You're making your own nation? What are you thinking, Cyclops? And Cyclops gives this amazing speech. He was like, my family has spent our entire lives being hunted and hated. The world has told me that I was less than I knew I was. More, and I was more, right? And he's like, did you honestly think that we were gonna sit around forever and just take it? Fuck off. Okay, I added that last part, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it was, oh man, there's so many good. Cyclops is not even one of my favorites, but everybody was so badass in this, and like in different ways. I liked it. I love this era for a guy that has X-Men. Here's the 40 years at this point. It was amazing. It was. I remember when you and I did a show together doing the weekly. I joined you guys.
Oh my gosh, that was so fun. You were like, "What have I gotten myself into?"
And then I made the comment that I'm like, it feels so good buying X-Men in single issues again. Like it was that good.
It was. I mean, and it was great to get upset about X-Men because I got upset about a lot of comics in this era because you cared again. Like I wasn't upset because it was boring or upset because it was bad or upset. I was upset because I was deeply invested in what was happening. But here, look, we said we're not going to give you unvarnished praise and we're not going to just dog on something. So here's the flip side. Hickman starts off so many big ideas. A lot of them take a long time to pay off. A lot of them do not pay off in recognizable ways. A lot of them pay off in books other than his. In fact, if people who are just this, we'll get into this. Hickman barely writes any stories here. Hickman's writing pitches. Everything Hickman does in this era is him being like, here's an idea, somebody should take this. Here's an idea, somebody should take this. He never really completes anything. So people are like, I'm just going to read Hickman. You got to stop being a baby and read the rest of Krakoa. Because if you just read Hickman, it's like getting a whole shelf of like Game of Thrones books and only reading the first chapter. Like Hickman kicks off stuff and then it matures in the other books. So we're going to look at this from a flagship only perspective, which at the beginning is just Hickman. But you have to understand that if you try to I'm just going to read the Hickman part, it's not like Avengers. It's not like Fantastic Four. You are not going to get a satisfying full story if you just read the Hickman part. And for that reason, Krakoa is a challenge. It can be a headache and it can be boring because you kind of have to read all of it to, at least in the first half, to see all of Hickman's plots come to fruition. So that's the negative side. It's a little bit too much of the too much.
Plus you got gold balls.
You agree? Am I talking out of my ass? Like I feel like
no. So what ended up, like I had the chance to talk to Hickman a couple of times. I forgot.
Humble brag. Let me just pick up that name. Here you go. Drop this.
It's not like I ever got him back. I always forget to ask him to come on the show and do an interview. But one of the things he told me was he has ideas for how he wanted it to wrap up the era, right? But much like probably the reason you don't like Lost is he was kind of writing without the idea of an actual ending. Like he had an idea for a beginning.
He was writing with direction and he was writing with beats in mind, but he wasn't writing with
But there was no definitive ending, right? Like he was writing to write, and then he decided to leave. He wasn't fired. He wasn't, he's the one that made the decision to leave because he wanted to focus on something else that was bigger, like a smaller scale book. Like he didn't like doing monthly ongoing series, which again, when he decided to leave Ultimate Spider-Man, Marvel made the announcement the Ultimate line is ending because Hickman probably decided it's time for me to get off the book. So
we're going to look at this multiple different ways. And if the number one question across omnibus collecting internet has been about blue and gold, the number two question is about Krakoa, and the blue and gold question will recede over time. The Krakoa questions will continue. What's crazy about this is that Marvel live, right as it was happening, creates this divide between two different omnibus lines. But instead of doing event versus kind of flagship, the way that we've seen in past eras, the divide here is kind of creator versus anthology. There's one line of books that is focusing on single series or single runs by creators, and there's another line of books that's collecting everything. Unfortunately, Marvel was in such a hurry to get started at the beginning of this with the X-Men by Hickman book that they created problems for themselves by omitting stuff right off the bat. The X-Men by Hickman book came out in 2022. Like they got it out as soon as they possibly could after he was off the titles. If they had to do it all over again, I am positive that they would put Empire's miniseries in that, and they would put Inferno in that, because Inferno wound up kind of getting abandoned. But what's crazy is that, and we'll see this in the mapping in a second, Marvel keeps making these errors. Like they keep stepping on rakes over and over again, and no matter how much shouting we've done as a community, this all of the creator side of the omnibuses are just fucked. They're just too messed up. It's going to be really hard to get a comprehensive, coherent shelf. But that's if you want everything. If you don't want everything and you're kind of satisfied with how the books collect, it's going to be fine. And we're going to explain how it's going to be fine. And then the anthology books are their own beast. So let's start out by talking about just this Hickman era, just in the creator style books. It's all been collected. House of X, Powers of X, collected in oversized hardcover. X-Men 2019, all by Hickman, and all of the giant size issues by Hickman, collected in his omnibus. X of Swords, it's its own event, oversized hardcover. Planet Size X-Men, which was part of the 2021 Hellfire Gala, it's in the Duggan omnibus. X-Men 1 through 9, Duggan continues, but that's all that's in this kind of Hickman period. It's in the Duggan omnibus. Inferno, it's its own OHC, so even though it's not in the Hickman omnibus, it does still exist in oversized. And Empire X-Men, which is kind of important because it kind of ties in Scarlet Witch to what's happening and addresses some stuff about Resurrection. It's in the Empire omnibus, but it's one of the few Empire tie-ins that's relevant to its actual book in addition to being relevant to Empire. A lot of the Empire tie-ins were very throwaway. The Empire X-Men tie-in is kind of important, and it's not just written by Hickman. That's why it's not in his omnibus. All of the writers take one issue each, but it still should have been in the Hickman omnibus. But you can read Krakoa without it, and it is in the anthology line. But if you were like, screw this anthology line, I'm a Hickman purist, I'm only going to buy what I like, you would be in pretty good shape. Let's go to the next slide. So let's look at the right. That's the stuff we have. House of X, Powers of X, X-Men by Jonathan Hickman omnibus, the X of Sword event, which is absolutely critical to both what Hickman's doing and what Tini Howard is doing. They co-write all the core of it. The X-Men by Jerry Duggan omnibus as he takes over from Hickman, and then Inferno capping off this era by Hickman. You've got a bookshelf. The only things that are missing on the right side are the things highlighted in blue, those Empire 4 issues, which I guess you just pick up the trade, or you buy the Empire omnibus, which otherwise has nothing to do with X-Men. And X-Men Unlimited Infinity Comic 1 through 6, which actually I think Hickman did all 6 of those initial installments with Declan Shalvey. And it was a pretty cool Wolverine story. Again, I think if they had a chance to do that Hickman omnibus all over again, they maybe would put that in there. But that bird is already flown. Now, in terms of stuff other than Hickman, and that's not in omnibus, Marvel has not really tackled this Hickman era in omnibus really very much at all. The Duggan stuff starts there. So there's 10 issues of this era in the Duggan omnibus. Also, the upcoming Way of X omnibus has 6 issues. That's part of this Hickman period. So that's going to be in there. But all of the rest of this stuff is only so far in anthology. So we could go down this whole list. I mean, it's super small, but I just wanted to show you we've done the math. And a lot of it has been in oversized hardcover. But none of this stuff has been an omnibus in a creator or series-based omnibus. It's only been omnibized in anthology. So the big ones, Excalibur is pretty big because Excalibur drives a lot of the plot of the line up until X of Swords, and then has a lot of Betsy material. That has not been an omnibus. We have not had Marauders in omnibus. Marauders is pretty much Kitty Pryde's book for all of it, all the way up until the very end of Krakoa. We don't have an omnibus of that. And of course, we don't have X-Force or Wolverine in omnibus yet by Benjamin Percy, except for the very end of Wolverine in the Sabretooth War omnibus. So we're not here to do a full Krakoa map. If you want us to come back and do this stream, but just Krakoa, going deep in every single Krakoa book, sound off in the comments. We will come back and do it. That's not what this is. This is about flagship books of Krakoa. And in the first half of Krakoa, you have everything flagship and you can own it in creator-based omnibuses.
So I would be more than happy to go into that another day about why I'm not a fan of Wolverine by Jason Aaron. But since we're doing this stream, it's going to be forever. So is it important to read Excalibur before X of Swords? Yes.
Sort of.
I know. I think yes, absolutely. Seriously. Because I know you want to do another Krakoa video, but I figured we tackled that question. I think it's really important. Because it kind of shows what kind of whimsical things we're going to get into in the X of Swords. Which, by the way, really quick, I do need to state that I have asked Marvel, and I hope they don't get tired of me. I even mentioned this in my video that's coming out tomorrow morning. about the reprint of the hardcover because I know how important it is for people to get that before Reign of X. So yes, I have asked Marvel. I haven't heard back yet, but I promise as soon as, you know, they're like, we're reprinting it, of course I'll make a video and you all will know. So I hope they do.
So now let's look at the Anthology Omnibus. Now, I have not touched any of these. I have not stroked their tender spines because I do not collect this in physical. So maybe Omar can talk a little bit about the reading experience and stuff like that. But the thing you need to know is they're so far going pretty hard in No Book Left Behind. I mean, there are things in these that were skipped otherwise. Empire is in these. The X-Men and Fantastic Four miniseries is in these. That was not in the original Anthology trade.
Yes.
They added the Juggernaut miniseries to these.
Yes.
That was not. And Omar, I don't remember. So, and I know that you know, did they have the Hickman's page from Marvel Comics 1000?
They did.
Yeah. So this is really everything. If you don't want to be fussed with tracking down books and mapping or whatever, this is made for you, baby. Now, some people got a little twisted that it didn't start with Powers of X and House of X, but here's the thing. Powers of X, House of X, that is 400 plus pages. That would have wrecked the shit of this map if they had put it into these books. And plus, it's going to sell on its own like Watchmen forever. So it remained its own book. They reprinted it for you. Get okay with it because that's the way that it went. X of Swords, we would have all loved to call X of Swords Dawn of X Volume 3. It didn't happen. Hopefully we'll get the reprint. But Omar, why don't you talk about the reading experience in these books? Because I've not touched them.
Oh, I love them. So a couple things behind the scenes. Okay, so a couple of things. Again, this video is not sponsored by Marvel Comics, but so I'm going to just share a few things. Number one, they were going to actually do this entire era as a Kickstarter. They were humoring the idea of doing all of Krakoa as a Kickstarter.
I still kind of wish it happened that because I love that.
Yeah, but and honestly, here's the thing. Like, number one, that would have really messed up the retailers. Like, I felt bad. Like, retailers really needed a win from Marvel. And this sold well through. Obviously, it sold well. By the way, the Dawn of X Omnibus Volume 1 will be back in stock in May. So if you need it, please get it in May or pre-order it at your favorite place to pre-order. This video is not
sponsored. Cover only.
So wherever you want to go, only the standard edition cover.
Yeah.
So that was one thing, right? Like they thought about it. And I remember I had a phone call with David and we, you know, he was like, you really think it'd be good for retailers? And I'm like, that's what every retailer I talk to wants. That's what every fan wants. And he was like, okay, let's do it. So number two, when they gave me the mapping of that omnibus, the very first Dawn of X omnibus, it did not have House and Powers of X. So that was an email going back and forth. Can you please add it? And they thought about adding it. And then they said, at the end of the day, I think, you know, we're not going to add it. It's an event is what we are deciding. And this is not David. This is the collected editions department. So I said, at the very least, can you reprint House and Powers of X so people can have that beginning? And they did. And
it'll sell forever. I mean, they'll do a Marvel premiere. I think that's their Watchmen in terms of X-Men. There's no X-Men story that will sell to the level of House of X, Powers of X, and collected edition. They could reprint it as many times as they want. It will always sell.
And now, you know, now comes the time of like now asking for the reprint of X of Swords, and I'll keep asking for reprints of things. Krakoa, if they mapped it out to 11 Omnis, it would be a lot more than that. You would not get a discount like that.
Yeah, you weren't going to get your direct.
And I'm not saying it would not have sold. I'm not saying it would not have. It would have, and they would have made bank. But I don't want. And honestly, I don't want Marvel or DC to go the Kickstarter route. We have enough big companies doing that. Like, you have to have faith in your product. And I think they have the money. You know, they're not a small independent company. I leave that for small independent companies. I don't know why the hell Boom is still doing it. Like, I guess it makes sense for things like Giant Days and Lumberjanes, but Power Rangers? Come on.
I see both sides of it, though, because, and I see why Marvel or DC would want to do it, because it's the chance. There's no mechanism in the direct market for selling somebody a set of something until you have it as a box set. And it's like, and then you already have to know that you're going to print it. So for them to want to put out a whole line of books, that's the reason Boom did it with Lumberjanes. It's the reason that Skybound did it with the Transformers and the G.I. Joe. It's to say like, hey, do y'all want this whole line? We're going to drip them out into the, you know, direct market, and they're going to be a little bit different, but here's your chance to sign up for that. And that like subsidizes the production. And like, Do I think Disney needs money? No. Do I wish that, much like HasLab, that there was a way for me to just tell Disney directly, yes, please send this to my house? Yeah. I mean, hell, if there was a Kickstarter for a whole year of DC Finest and it would just get here faster, I would do that. Like, I like the idea of having a direct purchase relationship to show them true demand. So that's me. We could have a whole debate about this.
And I do want to move on, but like that's also the difference between something that's going to be 4 Omnis and 11 Omnis.
11 is a lot. 11 is a lot.
That's almost 2.
You could have broken it into 2. They could have done Hickman and Post-Hickman.
Oh, that would have pissed people off. Then, like, are they gonna do it? Are they gonna go through all the way?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I know.
Okay,
I mean, you're talking to somebody who has every Marvel United board game expansion they've done. I will go in on a Kickstarter.
I can't believe.
Let's look at how this map.
I've shown you my brother's pictures. Right?
Yeah, your brother loves it.
Okay, let's do this one.
So this is the anthology path. So the anthology path, it's real damn clear because nothing's left behind. You get House of X, Powers of X, then you get Dawn of X Volume 1, then you get Dawn of X Volume 2, then you pick up X of Swords, whether or not they reprint it or you hunt one down, then you get Reign of X Volume 1. I mean, it could not be simpler. It is omnibuses for dummies. The question that everybody has, and neither Omar or I will know the answer until it happens, so we can't tell you, but Reddit loves asking as if there's going to be some answer that somebody can just suddenly materialize out of air, is, are they going to do the same thing they did with skipping X of Swords for things like Inferno, which was not in the anthology trades, for X Lives and Deaths of Wolverine, for Judgment? We don't know. We don't know. We're not going to know until we get there.
You know, it is a tough one because I don't know. My brother asked me these questions and he's like, I know you've got inside information. I'm like, I really don't. They didn't share like their entire mapping. All I was told is there was going to be 11 Omnis. I don't know what events are going to be collected in there. I assume Inferno would be collected in there. I assume Sins of Sinister, but then again, Sins of Sinister could be treated like Age of Apocalypse. And Age of Apocalypse, I don't think will go in the main line of X-Men in chronological order. I don't know. But I think Inferno.
But Sins of Sinister is tricky because, not to spoil it, but elements of what happens are very real for the characters that, for a character that it happens to. And
I completely agree.
It's like the ending of Krakoa only can happen because Sins of Sinister happened. So it's kind of different than Age of Apocalypse, where like 4 people come back and they remember it, and now we have Sugarman or whatever. Sins of Sinister, like, directly, and you didn't realize that at the time.
But if they're looking at it as an event, then more than likely they're not going to. But here's the thing: even if they don't, and even if they don't collect Inferno, I will always ask them to reprint those books because I know what it's like to be a collector and want everything. I don't want a freaking trade paperback. I want it to put on my shelf to go along with my Omnis.
Yeah. So look, nobody knows the answer yet. I'm sure we're going to get Reign of X Volume 2 because they're selling like hotcakes. But I want to address another. Gala.
I was told it was a big seller. So
yeah.
Now they don't ever share exact numbers with me, nor do they ever go public with those numbers. For anybody that ever sees numbers, those are just the direct market numbers. Those are not the book market, which to a lot of companies, the book market keeps them afloat. Looking at Dark Horse, for example, if it wasn't for the book market, Dark Horse would have gone under a long time ago.
Yeah. But I want to talk about this comment. So
Hellfire Gala.
Hellfire Gala, hey, Batsal, the first Hellfire Gala in 2021 was not a centralized event. It was an indirect crossover across every ongoing title. And then there was also Planet-Size X-Men. There's no way they skipped this in that anthology line. They put it out as an OHC at the time because it was just nice to have it on your shelf.
And it's really pretty. The red carpet.
But it's just going to read straight. It's just going to be 11 issues in the middle of an anthology. There's absolutely no way. I will buy each of you a Dawn of X omnibus if they skip it. They're not going to skip it. Because it's even though it's kind of an event because it's decentralized, it's also part of the run of each of those books. And if you don't read what happens in each of those books, then the next issue doesn't make sense. So it's not like X of Swords, where it's like this kind of removable thing that you can pluck out and read all on its own. So Hellfire Gala, I'm pretty sure is going to be in there. Yeah, because like Omar said, go ahead, Omar.
No, you're right, because it all happened within those issues, right? It wasn't like a big crossover event thing.
So we'll see if it keeps selling. Omar and I have mapped it. We both know exactly what we would put into every book all the way to the very end. And it makes total sense. It can be done. That's what I'll say.
This is an X marathon, baby.
We're in the last mile, baby, because we're in the last slide. Go one more, Omar.
This is crazy. I can't believe we're doing this under 4 hours. What the hell's wrong with us?
So now we come to the back half of Krakoa after Hickman departs. Hickman does Inferno. Then the whole line takes a little breather while Benjamin Percy writes this Wolverine, but kind of everybody event called the X Lives and X Deaths of Wolverine. And then we get into the back half of Krakoa at the beginning of 2022, and we launch a bunch of new books. We already have Jerry Duggan writing Adjectiveless X-Men, but now we get Kieran Gillen on Immortal X-Men. We get Al Ewing coming off of Sword, which was fantastic, and on to X-Men Red. And Cy Spurrier continues writing Nightcrawler and Legion in his Legion of X. There's a lot of other stuff happening, including Judgment Day. But like those four, Duggan, Gillen, Ewing, and Spurrier, are the four legs of this stool, and it is not a coincidence that all four of them got the first four Krakoa creator omnibuses after Hickman, because it lets you read the whole spine of Krakoa. Now, there are problems with those omnibuses. We will get there in a second, but that's the reason they exist. So, Omar, for me, I like this half of Krakoa. How do I say this? To me, there are higher highs in this half of Krakoa, but only in those four creators writing. Everything else, I could skip everything. I don't care about anything else happening in any other book. Whereas the first half of Krakoa, maybe the highs were not as high for me, but I really could go back and reread everything in that Hickman period and probably not skip anything except for Fallen Angels.
Oh,
that's how I feel.
What about Fallen Angels? Damn it.
That's how I
feel.
I do not feel that Krakoa fell off. I do not think it got bad. I think in some ways it got better. Gillen and Ewan are cooking
Gillen and
so hard. So hard.
I don't even want to say the saving grace of this era. No, they're not the saving grace. This era wasn't bad. Like, I know people are like, oh, Hickman left, this sucks. No, absolutely not. If you were not reading X-Men Red, if you weren't reading Immortal X-Men, if you weren't reading the what was it called? It wasn't Way of X, Legion of X, you were missing out. There were some really great issues. Now, I'm not going to lie. Not everything was great. Just like Peter, there was X-Corp. There's Children of the Atom. Both of those are
awful. I don't know if I could get through Children of the Atom again. That was rough. That was
Bernard Chang was the saving grace of that. But no, there's some really good stuff in here. And I think, I wonder, I would love to ask Hickman what he thinks of what these guys did with the X-Men titles. Like,
well, here's the thing that makes me wonder that too. If the whole Hickman era is set up, like everything's being set up, this is sinking the balls in the pockets of the pool game. Like Hickman broke, and then these guys sink. So Immortal X-Men, it pays off the whole idea of the Quiet Council, the whole idea of resurrection, everything about Sinister, everything about everything. Al Ewing in X-Men Red pays off everything.
That Resurrection Magneto, explaining why Magneto might be different every... No one had ever talked about that. It wasn't until that book that came out. Oh, it was excellent.
And Arakko as a culture. Like Arakko, not just all the cool stuff that Hickman invented, but like what's happening on the ground. What is it like for these mutants to be in the modern day? X-Men Red, it's mutants as a culture outside of X-mutants on Earth as a culture. And it's amazing. Duggan, even though I give him a little bit of crap now and then, really, really follows this line of like, what happened with the X-Men's public image? What happened with the X-Men as big business? What happened with all these drugs? What happened with Orcus that we saw originally all the way back in House of X 4 and 5, right? And then Spurrier is kind of off to the side, but he's also playing with this idea of like, what does it mean to have faith? What does it mean for Nightcrawler to be like the heart of the X-Men in this world where everybody can just die as many times as they want? And like Nightcrawler really struggles with that. And especially when something really bad happens, because now there are 2 more Hellfire Galas. They're collected in the Jerry Duggan omnibus, but the Hellfire Gala 2023 is the beginning of Fall of X, and bad shit goes down. And Nightcrawler is like, wow, this utopia that we thought we had where everybody's going to live forever turns out to not be the case. Shocker. I had my doubts. And that's kind of what is happening in the Spurrier books. So let's go to the next slide and see those books.
Yeah, and there were some great miniseries through here too. I agree with that. But again, not everything was a hit, right?
Yeah. So look, guess what? We have everything of those main flagship things in Omnibus. It's all there. We have X-Men 10 through 35, although that comes with a footnote. 35 has been abandoned by 4 different omnibuses now. It's only in an event omnibus. It's stupid, and I hate you, Marvel. Immortal X-Men and X-Men Forever, which is just the last arc of Immortal retitled omnibus. X-Men Red omnibus. All of Judgment Day is in its own omnibus. That is a pretty good read, in half by Hickman. It's like 50%, or not Hickman, half by Gillen. It's a 50% Gillen book. Sins of Sinister has now been collected across the Ewing, Gillen, and Spurrier Way of X omnibuses because they each write a third of it. So we have that. And then we have all of Fall of the House of X and Rise of the Powers of X in that very poorly mapped omnibus. The only flagship-ish, flagship-y book that isn't collected is X-Men The Wedding Special 2024, which the A story is Gillen's kind of epilogue to his run, and for some rude reason, they didn't put it in his omnibus. So you could totally have this. No wait. As soon as that Way of X omnibus by Spurrier comes out later this year, you can have the whole flagship back half of Krakoa and read it immediately.
The Wedding Special, I don't know. I don't know if they'll add it into that Gillen omnibus.
No, they're not.
Some things, but we will see.
They won't. But now let's talk about a couple of problems. So let's go on to the mapping slide. Axe is its own omnibus. Some of us were hoping it was going to get put into the Gillen omnibus because he wrote it, but Marvel decided against that. Fine. Then the thing is, even though these 4 omnibuses on the left, look at them, beautiful, just 4 perfect omnibuses by 4 fantastic writers. Unfortunately, if you buy those 4, you're still going to have to buy Fall of X and Rise of the Powers of X, because that's what has the actual Fall of the House of X and Rise of the Powers of X. And also, and this is so rude, X-Men 35, which is the final issue of the era that shows how Krakoa wraps up and is co-written by Jerry Duggan and Kieran Gillen, is not in the Duggan omnibus, and it's not in the Gillen omnibus. I've been waiting for 3 hours to say that.
I hope it was well worth it. And it's definitely one that I try to get added, but I think they consider Fall of the House and Rise of the Powers an event Omni. I just wish it was mapped better.
Oh, I know. It's just like a bunch of trades stapled together. So look, there's still a lot of stuff that is left to collect, and I don't know that any of it's going to get its own omnibus. There's some Betsy Braddock material that maybe gets into a Teenie Howard Excalibur omnibus. There's Marauders, which I do think will eventually get an omnibus that will also catch X-Men Before the Fall, Mutant First Strike, which is very much a Marauders story. And then there's a whole lot of Fall of X stuff, but there's just no, the main stuff is here. It's done. And honestly, other than those 2 things, I think we're only going to see a lot of this little miniseries stuff in the Anthology line. If I can make one bold mapping predicament, there's too much Fall of X to go into one book. And if Marvel's kind to us, when they get to that Anthology line, they might put all of the miniseries in one book and all of the ongoing series in another, because that miniseries book would double as an anthology book and as a book to go with the books on the left. Who knows? We're years away from it happening, but maybe they break reading order a little bit when they get to that anthology book, because that book could very easily kind of go for both in the same way that the Extinction Agenda omnibus does. But I'm just talking out my mapping ass now, and we're not anywhere close to the Tiger Eyes poll. The point is, you've got it. This already exists. All the big stuff for Krakoa you need already happened, and you don't have to wait for the anthology line to get there if you don't want to.
I feel like this is Peter's Always Sunny in Philadelphia moment. Who the hell is Pepe Sylvie? X-Men 35 really is a once-in-a-lifetime book. Such a shame it's not more widely available. That was a chance to double dip with the Jerry and Kieran.
But it's long. That's the thing. It's very long.
It is.
Story.
It's oversized. Yeah. But it is, like Peter said, in the Fall of House and Rise of Powers of X. I hope all of that will be remapped when we get to that era. And yes, we're still going. This is X-Men. Of course.
This is the final slide.
That's it. We did it.
That's it. Well, because From the Ashes, we don't, it's still going. We don't really know. Yeah. It's even hard to figure out how to map it because it's so early on. So there's not anything yet. Yeah.
Wow. Are there more questions? We will be here for as long as, you all need us, and I will be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. I don't know. Let's keep it to X-Men, because then we can talk about this another day. I can't wait to talk about My Green Lantern, will there be a Kieran Gillen Omni? Yes.
There's been two.
There's two. There's one that comes out, I think it was pushed back, unfortunately, until March. And then the other one that comes out later in the year is the Krakoa era Gillen Omnibus.
Yeah. I mean, y'all, we literally did it. Now, we talked about every X-Men flagship omnibus. Now, there's a few, they're on the borderline. Are they flagship or not? And I'm like, there's too many things in the slides already. We didn't do classic X-Men, even though we talked about it a little. We didn't do X-Men The Hidden Years, which kind of, you can make the argument is,
So here's the thing. Like, every time I go through my reading orders, I think about that. I'm like, you know, when I did the Avengers reading order, I'm like, should I add Avengers West Coast? Should I add Secret Avengers or Uncanny Avengers? And I'm like, no, that's just well, on top of a lot more work at it, I start losing the focus. So I think, no, this was perfect. Just focusing on the flagship X-Men titles, because we've gone through a lot over the years. Elsewhen, that is an Elsewhen title. That's
not a comic that will exist in the world very shortly.
We're in the shadows of tomorrow now. I think you are right. We are in the shadows of tomorrow, which I have no idea. That's after the age of, what is it called?
Revelation. Which
what have I gotten myself into with collecting X-Men Omnis? That should be a t-shirt.
Here's what I would say to you about that. Nobody's going to make you buy all of these, and they're all on Marvel Unlimited. All of Uncanny X-Men, all of everything. Like, in terms of flagships, I'd have to go through one more time to be sure, but I'm pretty sure every single issue we talked about in this whole presentation is all on Marvel Unlimited. So you don't have to be Omar and I. And even there's stuff that I'm skipping. I don't buy things from after 2012 in Omnibus. I don't feel like I need it. So buy the stuff you're going to reread. Don't let Omnibus be like, I'm only ever going to read it for the first time in Omnibus, maybe for Krakoa because they're doing something special with that. But like, that's crazy talk. Read things first and then have the things in Omnibus that you love. And get to enjoy them. Right now, Kid Crisis is on summer breaks. I live in the bottom of the world in New Zealand. And every 3 days, I let her take out a book from my library as a library loan. And she has reread all of New Mutants, which we read together. She reread all of Excalibur, all in Omnibus. And it is so cool to walk into her room and see her poring over this giant tome of an omnibus, knowing that I've read it and that she's read it and that I'm going to read it again. To me, that's what an omnibus is. And that's what it's for.
I said this earlier. By the way, do you think Alpha Flight should be in theoretically?
I think Alpha Flight is a theory.
Oh, yeah.
I love Alpha Flight. I'm here for Alpha Flight every time it comes back. That Alpha Flight, if you're asking about the Alpha Flight mini from during Krakoa, it's part of Fall of X, so it has to be collected. Yeah.
So I mentioned this earlier today when I was on a stream with Jess and Dom and Cody, that it is an amazing time to be in collected editions. I can't imagine what it would be like to start collecting X-Men Omnis. Yes, I know some of them are out of print, and I would probably be making stupid-ass decisions. But just the fact that they're available in oversized format and so much of it, collecting decades of X-Men, it's just insane. We live in such an amazing time.
It's the golden age. It's never been this good, and it will only get better.
Yeah. And you know, and I mentioned this, you know, now it's weird because back when Peter and I started collecting these, there was nothing. We had no idea. There was a time when we had no idea there was going to be an Uncanny X-Men Omnibus Volume 2. I almost bought the fucking Dark Phoenix Omnibus because I thought, oh, I think this is Volume 2. They're never gonna. And then, you know, now we just, you know, we it's almost entitled that we bitch about covers or we bitch about one or two missing issues or mapping. But there was a time when we didn't have any of that stuff. We were bitching about not having books. And I mean, DC was worse off than Marvel, and they've turned it around. But it's just a crazy, amazing time to be collecting these particular books and reading them. And I hope people are reading them.
Well, I also would say a lot of people are like,
to collect too. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was just saying, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, well, you were a big part of that, Omar, which you are, and I don't want to take away from that at all. You're a huge part of that for me. But also, if you're buying these books, you're a huge part of that.
Absolutely.
I can't express to you that in 2010, when I started Crushing Crisis's comics coverage, and I made the initial guides that allowed me to do this 15 years later, it was not taken seriously that you were going to try to get all these books in a row on your shelf. No. Nobody cared about that. It was a total niche. It was not being paid attention to. People would laugh and be like, just get the single issues. People were still binding single issues. Like this was not serious. And the reason it's serious now, and the reason we can go through this and say there are so few gaps as there are, is because everybody keeps showing up and buying. And when Marvel starts putting out crappy books we don't want, and we stop buying, then it dries up. And so like the hope is that all the excitement that you've shown in the comments here, Marvel's aware of in some way, and that they keep buying, printing books that we really love. And we never get, a point where they're printing books none of us want, and that they think it's time to pack up the toys and go home. So if whether you buy every X-Men book or whether you just bought your favorite one by your favorite author, like you're part of why this is taken seriously now. This, aside from the technology of streaming and YouTube, we could not have done this 15 years ago. We certainly couldn't have done it 10 years ago. Maybe we could have done it 5 years ago, but there were still a ton of gaps. Now we can do this in this way and have it not take 8 hours because the books exist.
Yeah. You can take a step back and realize, holy crap, I have decades of X-Men collected in oversized hardcover format. It's insane. And I want to double down what Peter said. Your voice matters. Marvel does listen to you. Well, whenever I say in my breaking news videos, when I tell people to leave a comment, I really mean that, because Marvel is looking at the comments and they see when people are upset. So when I bring it to their attention that, hey, they're, the BLOODTIES Omnibus really confused people, they made the point of clarifying that there will be a volume 2 of X-Men Blue and Gold. So it's amazing. It's amazing that, we both at Marvel and DC, we have like contacts and we can tell them, and they're asking, they're asking for advice. They're asking, what people are saying. I wish more companies were like that. And I know, you're not going to make everybody happy. You're not going to, people map books differently. Everybody's got a different reading order, but holy shit, I can't imagine there's no other companies that ask for people's input, right? Like I can't imagine, besides like HasLab's Kickstarter thing that they do, there's not like a place where people are taking, the companies are taking questions and advice. I wish video game companies would do that.
I feel like there's some music,
where's my Chrono Trigger PS5, please? I need a new Chrono Trigger. Come on. Yeah.
I just want to highlight this because I do think this is going to be one of the most frequently asked questions for years to come. We have Immortal X-Men by Gillen, X-Men by Duggan, X-Men by Ewing, and then Way of X. It's so stupid because the Krakoa, but it sounds like it's in an anthology, and people are going to buy it by mistake. It should be called Way of X by Simon Spurrier. At least if it had a creative name on it, people would know that it's not the anthology line, or Way of X and Nightcrawler or something, like anything to just break up the Way of X. People are going to.
It's not in the catalog yet, right? I don't think it's reached.
You're telling me there's still a chance?
Well, I mean, we've known that they've changed titles in the past, so they very well could change the title. I wish they would, because even within my video, I did say that. I know sometimes, there are people that don't watch the whole thing or just fast forward and they're like, oh, there's the cover, there's content, that's all I need. But in my video, I do explain that this is just the Cy Spurrier X-Men Omnibus. That's all it is.
Yeah. All right, Omar, I think we should say, let's have lightning round, 10 minutes, X-Men questions from anybody who survived. There's almost 300 people still watching. If you haven't
hit that like button. Hit that like button.
10 minutes of lightning round, then I got to flee.
And
Omar's had a long day.
I haven't eaten dinner yet. I filmed.
I haven't eaten anything. I had one apple.
I went to a funeral and then I rushed back home. I did have a large caffeine drink. But I wanted to come back because I told people I would be doing this today. I'm going to have to get 2 trades then. Do you think Marvel should move volume naming instead of naming in Aftermath of Prelude, since the community doesn't care? Do you think Marvel should do more volume namings instead of naming? You're talking about volumes as in Mutant Massacre Volume 1 and 2, or Inferno 1 and 2 instead of Inferno Prologue and Inferno? Is that what you mean?
That we have, should Onslaught Aftermath have been named something other than Onslaught Aftermath? You know, we're all talking about Inferno Aftermath. Should that be called like the end of the Outback or something? You know, here's the thing, JJ, Tiffany. I really believe that names are just another marketing tool. In the same way we were talking about Wave X, the best name for a book is the name that sells the book to the people who want the book.
Yeah.
I think it's good to have these prelude and path to and aftermath titles when that helps orient people to like where the book goes. And if you gave it like a cutesy marketing title, like the Holding Hands Friendship Omnibus, like that, nobody knows what that means, right? Call it, oh, that's the Schism Omnibus, right? So I don't think they should get away from it or do it more. I think they should do it when it's appropriate and when it signals to people the relationship to that book to another existing book.
I really wish they would do volume numbers in the back, like the epics. They were starting to do that with the Brubaker era of Captain America. Oh, like volume 12 instead of Aftermath. Oh, I see what you mean. But they have never in the history of chronologically ordered Omnis, Spider-Man, X-Men, jumped ahead. They've never said, here's volume 10. And you're like, wait, where are volumes 5 through 9? They do it.
Well, they kind of have. I mean, Grunwald is a jump ahead in Cap. They're not. That's
yeah, but it's not called volume 12 of Captain America.
Right. It's not. But they could have epic style on the back cover.
Oh, yeah, but I think it's too late for that, right? I think
yeah.
Thing has established we're doing this in chronological order. I think putting a little volume, but keep in mind those Omnis like Prelude to the Massacre, or I'm sorry, Prelude or Inferno Prologue, or Prelude to the Massacre. Those are mapped different than the chronological order of X-Men, right?
Yeah.
So they wouldn't have called it volume 6 or volume 5, obviously. So they're different.
Yeah, our brains are always looking for like patterns and signals and series, but like sometimes the book is just the book that's the book, and we're trying to like force it into being volume 12. It's just the book that it is. Let's see. What else? What I saw quite a few ones come in.
You pick the questions. I'm okay.
What Krakoa creator-centric omnis are essential? Well, the thing is, there's about to only be 5, and those 5 are the 5. Like, you know, Hickman, Gillen, Duggan, Sperry, Ewing. I just think Gillen pays off Hickman so hard for me. I know Gillen's my guy, and you can't fully trust me, and I have rose-colored glasses on, but I was so satisfied with everything that Gillen did to pay off Hickman. So, but I love everything Gillen does, so it's hard to trust me.
No, I agree. I really like Gillen's run. I think I like Dugan a little more than you did. I thought Dugan's run was a lot of fun. I think Dugan did what you said, plus also expanded the X-Men line to other Marvel series. Like, oh, we're going to tie this in closely to the Iron Man run, and we're going to make it a big thing. If I only had to pick, gosh, this is hard. I would go with X-Men by Gillen and X-Men by Al Ewing.
Yeah.
And honestly, I would go X-Men by Al Ewing and X-Men by Gillen over X-Men by Hickman. I would too. I know how important that run is, and I know people love it. I love it too, but I think X-Men by Ewing and X-Men by Gillen spoke more to me as a, although Children of the Vault, that was really cool in the X-Men or the Hickman book. That spoke more to me.
Duggan pays it off
for years. Yeah.
We've got a couple of variations on this. Some people ask that we're not going to rank all 10. Some people want us to rank the ones our favorites after Claremont. If you had to go back all the way back to that first slide where I had the list of all the eras, which ones do you go back to the most?
Let me pull that up. Oh my God, Peter. Jesus.
It's been a week, Omar. It has been a week.
That's a lot of slides, brother. Okay. I'm going to share it. Okay. So ranking the X-Men eras, I mean,
shoot from the hip. Just put them in order. Go.
Okay. X-Men in the 90s, number 1. The era that brought me back, the Astonishing Era, number 2. Number 3, X-Men by Claremont. I go back to that era so much. The new X-Men era. Shit. No. Wait. Because I really like the Hope era too. There's some Gillen stuff in there that I really like, and the Krakoa era. Okay. God damn it. I suck at this. Okay, on the fly is really hard because I have to put some thought into this, but Okay,
I know, I'm like in my head, I'm Rubik's cubing in my head trying to make it work.
X-Men in the 90s, Astonishing Era, The Age of Krakoa. That's the top 3 for me.
I think I'm gonna go.
What do you think?
Claremont 90s, Hope, Krakoa.
Claremont over X-Men. See, X-Men in the 90s I see as Claremont Outback era. Is that
but
not...
it's not Outback? I mean, that's only like half a year of it.
Okay. X-Men by Claremont, then Age of Krakoa. Oh, I'm sorry, X-Men in the 90s, and then god damn it, wait. X-Men by Claremont, Astonishing, then Age of Krakoa. There you go.
Yeah, because I feel like it's like steps. Like I wanted to say Hope or Krakoa because they're probably my favorite ones to reread, but it's like you kind of need Claremont and 90s to make Hope and Krakoa as great as they are. So,
yeah.
Anyway, that's me.
X-Men in the 90s probably would have been number 4. Yeah, it would have been 4. It had some great stuff.
All right, my very good friend of many years online, Robert Secunda, says, how many years away do you think we are away from a complete, from the beginning all the way to Hoxpox, flagship collected in Omni? Like basically all of the things we said we were missing between 1961, 63 and 2019. How long do you think it's going to take to get there?
Oh, God. We don't even have a volume 2 yet of Dawn of X. I know Reign of X is coming out. If they do 2 a year, I mean,
but we're not just talking about I think what he meant was like all of the gaps. Like how, remember we were waiting to have every trade gap filled, and then finally they did those final 2 trades in like 2017, and we're like, shit, we finally have every issue in trade of X-Men. How far away are we from that for Omnibus, for all the things we talked about today?
Oh shit, why do you pick the hard questions?
Oh, there's harder ones coming up. So look, I'll answer since Omar's thinking. I think that they know that X-Men fans are out there, but also we're splitting our time with the Krakoa books. And so what would have been like 8 X-Men omnibuses a year a couple of years ago, now it's only going to probably be like 4-ish or 5-ish older ones because they're putting out Krakoa too. So I think you would have to go through this and kind of decide for yourself how many omnibuses are we missing in total, and then say, well, how long would it take to do that 5 per year? I think it's not going to be by 2030. We're still going to have gaps. They're still going to be drawn because 20 is not enough, I don't think, to quite get through everything, especially once we get into like ResurrXion and all different Marvel, because they have to wait until that stuff is old enough that there's demand for it. But I do think we're going to close up the gaps through AVX pretty soon. We might be pretty close on everything through AVX by 2031. 4 more years of announcements. That feels like enough to get through like Austin, the 90s stuff we're missing, the fraction stuff. I mean, it's not a lot. So that's what I think. I think 2031 to AVX. That's my wager.
I think it's going to be 2035. I'm putting
to get all the way to Krakoa.
I'm putting a lot of thought into this because I know I've learned that Marvel knows that people want X-Men.
There's always money in the banana stand.
Yes. They know it. And they're going to make you want it. And they're going to make you wait.
Perfect next question then. What should Marvel really focus on next?
I think they need to, I know this is a freaking very, very entitled word to use, but I think they need to reward those of us that have been collecting these oversized hardcovers for years. So I want them to focus on an era that has never been available in oversized hardcover, and it would be the very next book, right? So I want that, crappy as it may be, Hunt for Xavier and the Hunt for Xavier and the Magneto War Omnibus. But that's not much of an era. Really, the era
only 2 books.
Yeah,
we need. Just 2.
But I guess it would actually be that that era that we talked about a little bit earlier that they didn't do it. They actually didn't collect a lot of, which is the 2000. I think it's
there's like nothing.
Post Astonishing. There's really not a lot, right?
It's not great.
Yeah, it's not. And even Claremont's 3rd round on X-Men wasn't that great, but I'll take it.
Oh, I do have a soft spot for that though.
You do? Okay.
I do. I love
Alan
Davis.
I love Claremont, but man, there was some really bad stuff there. Okay.
When they infiltrate the Hellfire Club, that's good.
Okay, End of Grace was badass. The Hellfire Club was really good. I was mainly, Rachel and the Savage Land and finding X-23 and the Psylocke story that made no damn sense.
So look,
you know what? Yeah, that era with Chuck Austin.
I think the next 2 years we want to see those next two Blue and Gold books. Let's get it done. Let's be done Blue and Gold. I think the next 2 years I would like to see those two Gap books from the late 90s, the Hunt for Xavier and the Magneto War. Let's get it done. Then we'll be done through 2001. Then we have room to play. So if I have any wish, it's like there's just 4 books. There's plenty of other X-Men to print that people will buy. I would like to have those two book gaps wrapped up. Then I think what we really need is stuff that wasn't on here. I think we need like X-Force by Kyle and Yost. We need Academy. I think there's bigger. We need X Factor after Pad when Havoc's the leader. We need the rest of 1991 X-Force. I think a lot of my priorities are outside of the flagships. Now that we have Gillen, I just want those fucking 4 books. So that's my opinion. I think let's just be done.
They need to close the gap on New Mutants. We've got the closing of Excalibur. We need to close the gap on New Mutants. We need to start Generation X. X-Men needs to be released in some kind of format. It's so weird that we don't have X-Men.
And there's very little Cable. They did collect it almost.
Cable would be great too.
In trade, but yeah,
Cable went through his own eras that were phenomenal.
He doesn't even have an epic line. He's like one of the few ongoing Marvel characters with more than 100 issues to his name. Maybe the only one, actually, other than Spider-Woman, who doesn't have an epic line.
He's got more issues.
Nova doesn't have 100 issues. Yeah.
No, Spider-Woman.
What are your top 4 runs? Just off the hip. Creator names, go.
Whedon, Mike Carey, Gillen. Ooh, this is where it gets a little tough though with my 4 because I only have 1. Shit.
Only flagship though, so you don't have to worry about
but even flagship, I only get 1. I think I'm with you. I as much as I hate X-Men Deadly Genesis, I hated that retcon. I kind of dug that the Rise and Fall of the Shi'ar Empire.
I love it. I don't understand. To me, it's the coolest X-Men cosmic story. Like I don't think there's ever even. Phoenix Saga is only cosmic for 1 issue. Rise and Fall of the Shi'ar is a whole year of X-Men in fucking space. It's cool.
I almost want to say Morrison. That's the right choice, but I don't know. There were parts of Morrison that were too many downs, not enough.
Yeah.
And when they were down, they were down. Like I hated the retcon of it. Like what was it? Assault on Weapon X? I always call that story Assault on Weapon crap because I hated it that much.
That's not even clever, Omar. You can't make it rhyme. Assault on Weapon.
Fine. I'm on the spot now.
I'll say Nicieza.
Oh, wait. Was Claremont? Nicieza. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Nicieza, Gillen. Easy top 2. No one touches the hems of their garments. Carrie. Carrie right like 2 steps behind them. Whedon is only 24 issues. I like Fraction. I just think Fraction. I love Utopia so much.
Oh, I hated Fraction's run.
I think I would put Fraction.
A strong word. I did not like Fraction's run.
I just like Cyclops in charge, backs up against the wall. I don't know. Any given day, I could go Fraction.
You're entitled to your opinion. You're wrong as hell. You're entitled to your opinion. Yeah, you know what?
All right, I'll just steal this one quickly because I think you're behind. I cannot read Gail Simone's Uncanny X-Men. Wow. She's a very nice lady, is what I hear from people. But I cannot read it. It hurts me physically.
I don't think it's that bad. I've read worse. You know what? Really surprising. I hated Eve Ewing's X-Men.
That was like the one good one.
No, my problem with it was dude, we went
Carmen Carnero. Have you no heart?
Remember what I said about some of the saving? Bernard Chang was the saving grace.
All right, fair. That's fair. That's fair.
But there was nothing happening for 6 issues. Where's the villain? I think the first villain shows up in an issue of a crossover with X-Force.
Yeah, it was real darn.
But you know what? And NYX was also a disappointment. And I like Eve Ewing.
NYX started really strong. First 3 issues, I was like, "Holy shit, this has got it."
After issue 3, it went downhill.
Any swimming tips? I haven't been swimming in months because of my injury. I am supposedly getting surgery next month, so triathlon on hold.
Oh, man.
Why the Wolverine hate, says KJ Murphy. Why is he not an X-Man? We would love to come back and do an all Wolverine version of this stream.
Oh yeah, that would be a lot shorter, bub.
Well, I don't know. There's a lot of Wolverine. Remember how long Map My Wolverine was?
That's right. Yeah, we would have to map Wolverine first. Ooh, that would be a fun stream, though.
I would say, look, if you want us to come back and do this a lot, I could be tempted. You need to show Omar via the likes and views on this being like extraordinarily high.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I don't, man, I've always been.
Omar never says that stuff, but I'm a data person and I look at numbers and I absolutely notice when some streams do better than other streams.
Yeah, I never look. But my problem, okay, so it's, I do this for a living. I don't have the time to go back and look. Like, I look at my analytics once a month because I cannot hyper focus on them every day. It's too much. I think, for me, it's going back is hard and seeing what, I see once a month what's worked, what hasn't. Sometimes I'm like, damn, I put a lot of effort into that video and it performed shitty. Or I had a lot of fun on that video, but I need to have fun instead of like I filmed the Judge Dredd video and I'm like, oh, this is probably not going to perform well. But I don't, at that point, it's like, but I need those videos in between my successful X-Men and Batman videos to be, for me, like it was for
That's
me.
why I do guides to like characters that, I mean, there's guides that I have that literally have had probably 10 clicks ever. And it's like, sometimes it's just for me. Sometimes it's because I just am curious and I want to know.
Yeah.
Like I'm working on a guide right now to, Paul Chadwick's Concrete. I may be the only person who cares. I love it.
I don't know why they haven't released it like in an oversized hardcover.
Oh my gosh, it needs to be a library edition. Well, yeah, okay.
Thank you.
So let's see. A couple more questions. Penguin, the Penguin Chenault that has a cat DJing a pizza, a pepperoni pizza. I'm fascinated with everything about you. Thanks for doing this. Sorry if this is already addressed. Do you think the entire Krakoa age will be collected in the anthology run 8 to 9 Omnis? I think Omar and I, we both have it at 11, right? Depending on if they redo Fall of X, the end. Yeah.
And Marvel did say that they're doing 11.
Yeah.
Or
it just makes sense.
They've mapped 11. They've mapped 11.
If you do the math, it maps out to 11. Is Spurrier X-Men good, Omar?
Yes, but I like Spurrier. I think it's one of the least Spurrier type of books. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense. If you've read a lot of Spurrier, Spurrier likes diving deep. He likes making things a lot more complicated than they should be. Not in the way that Hickman does it, not in the way that Gillen does it, and it's not definitely in a pretentious way. He creates his own language sometimes in some of his independent stuff. But I really like it. And let me tell you, I like it so much that even fucking Onslaught in that book did not keep me away from reading that book.
That's true. Same. I think that I think Spurrier had the biggest ideas the soonest. I think a lot of people were kind of like very hyper focused on like I got this thread out of the gate because almost everybody that was on the books in 2020 and 2021 had started with the books. I think the only person who kind of like came in after a few issues but was still kind of early was Vita Ayala, but Spurrier came in kind of later than I think even Vita did and was like, oh yeah, we're talking about everything. We're talking about the ethics of sex. We're talking about resurrection. We're talking about people living inside of each other's heads. And I just feel like Spurrier's always was a little bit over the line for me. He gets a little too crazy on every single book that he's ever written. But I just think that his ideas were so big that it was attractive. Even when it was messy, it was still attractive.
Like that, I know it wasn't in our poll to vote in the top 20, but that X-Men Legion was amazing. Like I love that book. It's got some awesome artwork too.
And again, big ideas, right? Like I don't really love that run, but I cannot deny that he took ideas that X-Men doesn't usually play with and he just went super big brain. And if you like that kind of X-Men, that's the kind of thing to do. Dark Paladin 179 asked, so Marvel basically confirmed that Blue and Gold Blood Ties is volume 3, right?
Yes.
Omar?
Yes. And I said earlier that they did tell me, so this is from Marvel, that there is an in-between book. And again, I'm doing a breaking news update tomorrow on some things you all
sure hyped it up enough. I know to tune in. I feel like I've definitely
6 a.m. I love releasing those at 6 a.m. People are like, why are you waking me up? Like, because the
Dr.
rest
No
of the
Good
world
says,
already-
would we do an Avengers version of this? I would love, Avengers much better than me, but
Yeah,
I
but-
would still do it.
I mean, Avengers is pretty easy to collect too. Yeah, I'd
Yeah,
love.
well, it's
Wait. We can even include Secret Event. That's when we can have fun. We can
Yeah.
include-
Oh, I would do everything with the word Avengers in it for sure.
Oh, let's do that then. Yeah,
I would love
Maybe
to
we
do
should-
that.
We
Yeah.
should take a poll if people want us to come back.
Ooh, we should do a poll. You maybe start a poll. Josh, our good friend Josh Greathouse, creator of an outstanding comic book called Bang, asked if you two didn't have a channel, would we still be trying to get all of the X-Men, or would we be more selective?
Josh, I know I never show my video games or my movie room because that's my sandcastle and my toys. I am fucking stupid when it comes to collecting things. So yes, I would be getting everything, including the double and triple and quadruple dips. Yes.
If anything, I would probably buy more if I didn't have the page in the channel, because I wouldn't be organized. I think like it's kind of like you have to like measure the whole world before you take a bite out of it. And now that I've measured the whole world, I know what I want to skip. Whereas I think before that, I was just in my garage in the stacks looking at how I used to buy every single trade Marvel put out. Like I'm past that now because I know what I want. So I think having a channel and a site has made me more selective. Yeah.
I'm like Queen, baby. I want it all. And I'm not getting younger. Give it to
all
me
right,
now.
I have to go to D&D, so I'm scrolling very quickly to see if there's any more.
I gotta get some food.
Questions.
So yeah, let's take a couple more questions. This is a lot of fun. Yeah, we'll do something again. I'll if enough people want this, and if you're watching this later, please leave a comment. Let us know what you want to see, and if you want us to come back to do this. This is a lot of fun. I love talking to Peter. I love talking to X-Men. So it's a nice break. It was a shitty day. I had to go to a funeral, so I wanted to come back and talk about something good.
Well, and I love when Omar gives me the chance to come on the channel and just like go crazy. Like I like when he gives me an excuse to be like, crisis, make up the craziest shit you can make up. Give us the hardest challenge. Have the biggest fight. Like any time that Omar gives me permission to do that, I get excited.
Oh, this is a topic that came up.
Invite Juggernaut. I think I'm lagging. Would we invite Juggernaut to join an X-Men picnic? Omar, is Juggernaut invited to the cookout?
Yes. I've already explained why. We had a discussion about this. But what about you?
I don't think I would have said yes up until Krakoa, and I think that's why I really wanted his miniseries and the anthologies so bad, because I think he's so often been in the periphery. See, I mean, he's been an X-Men before. He's an X-Men during Austin. One of the reasons I enjoy parts of Austin, but I really liked how like he's an ally now. Like he's like, yeah, man. Like these have been my teammates. They've been my enemies, and I might want to kill them sometimes, but you're certainly not going to kill them just because they're mutants. And like I think allies get to come to the picnic.
I've always considered him a part of the X-Men, so which is why I really wanted that issue, those 5 issues added to the Krakoa omnibus. And we need the X-Men to reinvade the Pentagon. 150. Oh,
one of my favorite issues.
That's with Carol Danvers. That's with Rogue. I love that issue. Yes, do this with Avengers, Marvel Cosmic, Batman, Justice League. Anytime I get together with Peter and we talk about mapping and books and the way to collect them, I always have a blast. So
the danger is some things I just don't know the material as well. Like I just have not read that much Batman compared
to get you to do Judge Dredd. That's the one.
I've read maybe 3 issues of Judge Dredd ever. D&D, I play a half-elf cleric. I think I'm like level 11 or 12 now. We literally started playing the week before everything locked down. Not knowing that was going to happen, and now we've been playing on Zoom for the past 6 years. I co-DM with somebody else, so I DM half the time and he DMs, so we both have characters, which is really, really fun. And I think we're at the bottom, Omar, so there you go.
I want to thank everybody for watching. If you were watching this live, thank you so much. If you're watching this later, thank you. God bless you for sticking around. By the way, the live people, thank you. Smash that like button. Yes, please let us know if you want us to come back and tackle anything else that you've had questions about. If we didn't answer one of your questions, by all means, please leave a comment down below. I know it's a lot to ask people to watch 4 hours.
Oh, I'm a comment gremlin. I'm going to answer questions.
You are so wonderful for doing that, and I try. But I know it's a lot to ask people to, go back and watch 4 hours of a stream. I'm sure we answered a question, But just in case you missed something, please feel free to ask in the comments down below. I will be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. for my normal Saturday Q&A. I hope my wife is feeling better. She's a little under the weather, but, you know, I'm still going to be here. That's it, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Peter, where can people find you, my friend?
My home on the internet is crushingcrisis.com, which is the home to all of the reading orders that spawned all of this mapping. Very shortly, it's going to start having our official near mint condition rubber stamped mapping of what we want the rest of the Marvel and the DC universe to look like for our 2026 Tiger Eyes polls. So even though it feels early in the year, I'm already hard at work with mapping minties, getting that ready. And those polls will be coming up after Omar runs the reprint polls. So you will be seeing more of me on near mint condition to come. And just as I keep saying, of course, thank you to Omar, and getting to hang out with Omar and do this is, I mean, it's my favorite thing with one of my favorite people. What's more fun than that? But also thank you everybody whose minties have been asking about my health and my wellness. It has been a very, very hard few months and probably some more hard months to come. And at some point, the hair and makeup team might have to be dismissed and I might have to just arrive in some kind of elaborate Lucador mask. But until then, Excelsior.
And I will be putting the slides on Patreon sometime this weekend, too, in case you didn't have a chance to do a little screen grab, or even if you did. That's it, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. We are out of here. This has been your TED Talks.